Naturally. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Fantasy NBA today. 30-team NBA Cup Bruski 150 extravaganza. Brought to you by our great partners at FanDuel. I don't know how much of that earlier stuff you guys caught, but if you did, great. So just kind of letting my hair down, so to speak. It's been a huge push to try to get together another Bruski 150 during a 1 or 2 day window, however you want to look at that. The NBA calendar, it slows down. And, doing all of this, as long as I've been able to do it for, it's possible to do a B150 during such a small amount of time. And all of the trains got to be moving on time, and all the predictions and projections, pardon me, and then the ranking, and then the actual production of it. It's all very quick hitting, but it's done. It's been released. It's at sportsethos.com. Go check it out. If you have an NBA fantasy pass, you get the ranks. If you don't have one, we'll talk a little bit about them right now, but you want to get on over to sportsethos.com. Check out our memberships. You get access to articles like this. Obviously, this is a big one, but you also get projections, tools, and it's the same projections that are used to build the B150 that you get in those tools, and then articles that you just can't get anywhere else. The social media stuff can't compare. It's the kind of stuff where the guys that are doing the work in the lab every single day, they put together stuff like our cheat sheet, for example. On a busy night of action, you can have a cheat sheet that's really insightful, and it's got everything you need to know. Value add, pristine, extract, whatever I call it. It's basically making your life a lot easier, but you know that it's people that are working on this stuff every single day. And it's not just something that they're just tossing out there for engagement or whatever. So anyway, go to Sports Ethos, check that out. If you are so inclined, drop a like on this video. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Twitter, head on over to youtube.com/sportsethos, get subscribed. We put a ton of content out there, and we're putting a ton of content on all of the different platforms. So if you see a platform, you see a Sports Ethos, subscribe, like, and do all the things. Make sure you're getting all of our stuff. We want to make sure folks get stuff for free. And then we want to make sure that people who are members get that little bit extra, that they want to make sure that they dominate their leagues and all that good stuff. So, all right, we're going to get right into it here. I'm going to go team by team. We're going to cover 30 teams. We'll talk about everything in the context of the B150, and then everything else that's important as well. So, all right, Atlanta Hawks. Let's start with the great Jalen Johnson. That's actually kind of nice to start with the great Jalen Johnson. 2 seasons ago, Jalen Johnson was a guy who had played like 10 minutes, it felt like, in the NBA, and they happened in the playoffs, and I saw them happen in the playoffs, and I was like, that dude can play. And he was just unranked, not drafted, and I popped him up real high at like the 7th or 8th round in the B150, and he was just cruising immediately, just hit it. And then Kyle Kuzma ended his season. One of the handful of reasons I'm always not thrilled with Kyle Kuzma is that he hurt my Jalen Johnson that season. He would have been a nice top 50 kind of a win. We'll see who this year's B150 is. I think you guys, a B150 guy like that is. I'm sure you guys know who it is. But Jalen Johnson starts us off here. And the question with him is, do we sell high? And I think for me, the big difference maker, aside from some recent developments, is the free throw shooting. It feels like it's changed the dynamic there. That's been one of the things that's constantly held him back, along with the injuries. But with this new free throw shooting capacity, it feels like not only does it help him in his fantasy rank, but it also helps him get the ball in his hands. I mean, if you know that the primary ball handler is going to hit 80% or more of his free throws, well, it makes you want to run the offense through him a whole lot more. So I'm not really selling him high, I don't think. I'm gonna consider any good offer inside the top 15 for Jalen Johnson. And I might have said top 20 a couple weeks ago. And I've been kind of just slowly moving to this place where I'm not interested in selling Jalen Johnson anymore. And yeah, there is some injury risk here. I mean, he's got a history of it. But the return of Trae Young is something that I'm not that scared of. I'm kind of curious if Atlanta, the front office and even the city at large, has seen enough out of this current crew that they're not really ready to give Trae Young kind of carte blanche to do whatever he wants. And if he's around, he'll do Trae Young things, of course. Yeah, he'll be that guy, and there might be some value loss here for Jalen Johnson. But it's funny how things work when, the front of the organization is either changing or has changed. In this case, it's changing. I think Jalen Johnson represents the future. And so Trae doesn't get away with quite as much as he used to. But more importantly, I think if there's a chance that Trae Young's getting traded, it's this season. Like he's been, along with Kristaps Porzingis, paired together as the potential, I guess last call to see if this can work. And they brought in all these defensive guys, and this is a good, squad for Trae Young. And I think they've just seen enough that without him, they can be fine. And so the likelihood of a trade has gone up is the bottom line with this. So with Jalen Johnson playing well, I think with Trae Young and the potential that Trae Young gets sent out somehow, something else might come back in, but I don't know that Atlanta's going to want to stymie the growth of Jalen Johnson. So a fun one to start off with there. Trae Young has one of the more volatile ranks that we're going to see going forward. Not only does he have his work cut out for him in Atlanta, he also has his work cut out for him if he gets traded somewhere, to show that you can just give the ball to Trae Young and just kind of get out of the way and let him do all of the stuff. And on one hand, you want to do that because that's his value proposition. He's on the court for offense. He's not on the court for defense. But it gets harder and harder when you can't defend or teams are targeting you and you're taking up all of the usage. There's a short shelf life for that, or maybe it's not that short, but it's a short shelf. It should be a short shelf life for that in the NBA, because your worst defender gets all the stats and all the accolades, and then you start to get some resentment in those ranks. And most importantly, it just doesn't work defensively. So I think you start to limit that over time. In an 8-cat league, I think you're looking at a player that's got first round potential. In a 9-cat league, he's got a lot of turnovers, so his rank's going to go a lot further down. I'll say this: I'm not as bullish on Trae Young being a back end of the first round guy as I might have been during draft season. I wouldn't call it bullish, but I'd say he was an option there in the back end of the first round. I'd be looking at him in the second and maybe even the early part of the third round, ranking him going forward. So if you're looking at trades and sell lows and all of those things, and you probably just want to wait till Trae Young gets out there and does his thing and proves that value if you're going to look to trade Trae Young. But if you're looking to acquire Trae Young in a buy low deal, I'm not looking at him as a back end of the first round asset, or even a kind of a solid second round asset. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I don't think that's going to be the case. So that's the update on Trae Young. Let's get to Dyson Daniels. Really started in a disastrous way. Really a top 70 to 85 pace. And the interesting thing there is, because he hasn't missed games, he's actually ranking inside the top 35 to 45 based on totals. So if you did draft Dyson Daniels, if you draft him in the second round or in the turn of the first or the second round, I saw that happen. Not a lot, but enough. And you probably are feeling pretty bad about that. But if you drafted him in the third round, the fourth round, I got him in the fifth round in one place, I'm actually looking at this as a win. This pace is not that great. And the fact that he's just being, he's out there on the court, availability is a skill, and he's getting you close to your ADP at the worst possible outcome, the worst possible production that he's had. That's good news, if anything. The likelihood for a steals regression is the other issue here. So if he's at a top 35 to 45 level right now, and he's going to regress in steals, he's at about 2.1 per game, coming off of a really big game, by the way. There is potential for more here. And I don't think I'm going to go over my skis and say he's like a second or a third round value the rest of the way, but something in the fourth round, I think that's totally possible. Let's get to his teammate, Onyeka Okongwu. He might actually be the most interesting one here in Atlanta. And I'm glad we're starting off with this team. It's one of the better fantasy squads in basketball this season. And Okongwu, to me, is the definition of what a most improved player should look like. Not just like the NBA media was 3 years behind in figuring it out kind of a guy. He's a legitimate shot maker now on the perimeter. He's improved his ball handling. He's improved his passing. He came into the league as a defensive guy, and now he is kind of just doing it all out there. And he's been a huge key to the Atlanta Hawks' success. So Trae is going to return, and it will take from just about everybody, but I kind of think he's going to hold on to at least 80 to 90% of his value because of this versatility. Trae can take on some scoring. Okay, cool. Well, fine. Maybe I take a hit in scoring if I'm a Kongwu, but I'm all over the floor and I can do different things. So either I make it up somewhere else or I just don't get hit that hard, is the thinking there. So another player that I'm not really thinking about selling high on as much as I might have been, say, 3 or 4 weeks ago when this surge from the Atlanta Hawks really started taking shape. And then the last guy here that's at this level of play is Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Now, I'm a little concerned about recent injuries and just kind of like, just keeping my eye on it. He seems like he might be on the verge of having another injury, and I don't know if it'll be a big one or a little one. And then the Trae Young stuff. Everybody wants to know about Trae Young. Is this going to really kill Nickeil Alexander-Walker's value? The answer is going to hurt a little bit. But what's been great about watching Alexander Walker is he's kind of starting to look like his cousin a little bit. Like there's actually a toying with the defenders that hasn't really been present like in his rookie season or, years that he was given the ball and kind of everybody got out of the way. Well, he would have a lot of athletic speed-based stuff. Now he's just kind of going to the fakes and he's got the handle. It's a lot tighter than it used to be. And he's got better shooting ability. And you're just seeing the tempo of the game. He's kind of rocking defenders to sleep a little bit like his cousin. And he's not comparable, but come on. I mean, he can make a phone call and ask him for some advice and, get some moves. But I'm not going to say his value is going to stay where it's at right now. But anything more than a couple rounds of degradation, I think, is a little bit too much. I think he's a part of the future there. I think you got to have him on the court if you play Trae Young. And I'm not going to completely fade him. As far as Kristaps Porzingis goes, this recent illness, and they can say that they, the two are not connected. The fact that he's got to take a couple of weeks off for this particular illness, whether it's a separate one or it exasperates the other one, whether it's all of the other injury risk that he presents, I'm not going to have you guys chase after Kristaps Porzingis like that. He's been a top 45 guy on the season on a per game basis. And I just think when you can't count on it, you need to add an additional load to the risk and therefore drop that value. And I'm dropping it pretty excessively here. I might be wrong, but I'll live with that. As far as the rest of the squad, Zach Reese-Shea, I don't think this is going to happen for him this year. I think there is some talent there. I just think that in this particular configuration, he's not going to be able to make it happen in most fantasy leagues this year. So let's move it on to the Brooklyn Nets. You got Michael Porter Jr. producing at a top 27, ranked 27 per game in 8-cat on a per game basis. So you love it if you have Michael Porter Jr. right now. Trade. Don't, stop what you're doing right now. Go trade Michael Porter Jr. I think everybody knows that that's coming. Maybe if they don't, then you're just going to just reap the benefits. I think you could get, like in that case, a third round value. But really, I mean, consider bringing back a fifth round value and see, maybe you'll take a little bit of a haircut here in the next couple, like a month or two, but come on, you get out of that playoff risk, fantasy playoff risk that is. And you also get out of the potential for him to start really, really losing games in March and April. So nothing too shocking there. Nick Claxton is an interesting guy right now. We don't know about Brooklyn. We don't know about guys getting shut down. So that kind of takes the shine off of Nick Claxton. And he had a couple down seasons. So, I don't think a lot of people were screaming and jumping up and down to get Nick Claxton this year. Well, now he's doubled his assists and he's averaging 4.5 assists per game. Foul shooting still a problem. He's not the blocks guy he once was. I think there's some blocks regression that's theoretically possible. He's been a top 100 guy this season. I think when you throw that all up into a ball and mix it up, I think it's basically the same thing. So it's a good thing. I mean, I think this will be a successful season for Nick Claxton. It's just not something we're going to get over our skis about. And then you have Noah Clowney in Brooklyn. And Noah Clowney, it feels like he's got a lot more upside than what we look when we get the magnifying glass out and we look at this, and I've said this on a couple shows, it's like he still hovers in the late rounds for overall value. So you throw in this risk of Brooklyn trying to tank down the stretch, and at the same time, it's theoretically possible they give him the ball and let him run with it. A 156 on the season in 8-cat leagues. I'll predict improvement, and I'm fairly excited about him in the sense that like somebody's got to reach up and be the third guy in Brooklyn. And at some point in time, we'll get Cam Thomas in to shake it all up a bit. That's probably one of my main concerns, as he comes in and it has a month of productivity that ruins his teammates. But Clowney at this point, I would consider him a late round value going forward, and one that I'm happier to have than a lot of guys who have late round value. At least there's some potential there. And then we get Danny Wolf. Danny Wolf is super interesting. And I don't know if he can pull it off, but a fully realized Danny Wolf, I think, has top 100 per game upside. It's got a lot of downside. And the thing is, you could just drop him if it doesn't work out. So it's not like you're losing all of this value. I don't have him in my 150. But I do think that theoretically, because Danny Wolf is just this kind of, the classic invert the floor and have the big man run point kind of a player. It's all obviously in vogue. You're seeing it all around the league. They don't have anything to do but lose in Brooklyn, so they can actually trot this out. Even with all of that said, he's going to have to do really well to get into that top 100 per game upside. And I don't think it's going to happen. But again, more interesting than your average, dart throw there in the late rounds. Let's move it over to Boston. Boston has a lot of players we all know very well. I'm going to kind of, I'll give Jaylen Brown his DAP, and then I will question whether or not he can keep this shooting percentage up. He's been proving me wrong all season, but I will, I'm not actually going to fade, I think, Jaylen Brown as much as I might have in past seasons. I think that he has improved his handle. I guess I want to talk about Jaylen Brown. He's improved his handle. He's improved his tempo. I think he's improved his reading of the game, and credit to him for doing all that, because those were major issues for him. The handle's been notoriously a problem for him, and I don't think he's clear of those issues, but just simply getting better. And then with the tempo of the game, way less just rise and fire out of nowhere shots, more thinking man shots. And so credit to him for doing that. Now, Peyton Pritchard, on the other hand, has been a guy that we expected big things out of, and he's been a disappointment this season. We'll have to keep an eye on this most recent neck injury to see if it's actually a thing. The only thing I can say is that he's got some regression that's almost guaranteed to happen. And then there's probably some attrition that works out in his favor. And Jaylen Brown, I guess he can go all season long. He's been a guy that's had knee issues. And if Boston starts losing, we'll worry about that a lot more. Right now, I believe they're 15-11 after last night's loss. They're winning. That means Jaylen Brown's going to be playing. That means all that usage is going to Jaylen Brown. And that's been one of the biggest problems here for Peyton Pritchard, is it's all been Jaylen Brown almost every single night, with Peyton Pritchard and Derek White kind of feeding off the scraps from there, and everybody else not getting that much. Let's talk about Neemias Queta, another B150 success this season. It's just sort of a quietly getting it done thing. He does it in 24 minutes. I think he's got a great shot in an 8-cat league of finishing inside the top 80. And not a lot of people talk about him like that out there. His per game on the season is just 120. So he's going to have to do a little bit of improving. But I think with the minutes so low and just historic numbers colliding with what he's done to improve his game, he's really become one of the almost better offensive centers out there, with his ability to collect passes that are hard to catch, turn, finish, operate in the pick and roll. And again, just 24 minutes a game. So this production he's getting right now, I believe there'll be some regression in his favor, and also some potential minutes per game increase there. His teammate, Jordan Walsh, one of the cooler stories of the season. He's earned a starting role. He's getting you over 3 cash counting stats per game, sometimes 4. His percentages are ridiculously absurd. I mean, I don't know what he's shooting right now. He's shooting like 60% from 3. He'll have like runs of 80% from the field. Obviously only taking quality shots, but making some difficult ones. Been watching more of the Jordan Walsh show a little bit lately, just to see if he can keep up with some of the bigger names defensively, because that's what Boston is pitching him as a defensive solution, and trying to give him some cred, some awards cred even, which is just crazy to me, because this is a guy that couldn't get on the court last season. He's also gone from a guy that hits less than 40% of his shots to those numbers I was saying before. So something clearly clicked. And I do think athletically, whereas he might not have belonged a year ago, whether that was a read the game thing or the physicality of being able to move laterally and have all the strength, whether he spent the time in the weight room and he got there, and or he just the game got slower and he got faster mentally. I don't know what it is, which of those things, but I'll just take it. And I think Boston Celtics fans will just take it. And he will be a late round value going forward, even in 8-cat leagues where the lack of turnovers isn't pushing him up the ranks. So great job for Jordan Walsh. And then Josh Minott, what a bummer. I think the people that predicted Josh Minott having a breakout, or at least being positioned for a breakout, I know who those people are out there, and they are really sharp fantasy minds, and they saw what I saw, and all of us together hoped Josh Minott could be something, and especially on a team that had a lot of openings and theoretically could take a guy like that and just let him run up and down the floor. It hasn't happened. And Jordan Walsh being really a lot better than him, at least at this point in time, and maybe for the foreseeable future, that has kind of crushed the Josh Minott dream. But he's a young player. He will get back into some sort of a good situation and eventually round his game out. And he needs to get a little bit more strong, and he needs to learn the finer nuances of the game, as all young players need to do. And that will come with minutes, and whatever team can pick him up and give him minutes will reap the benefits. But this season, I don't know if he's going to be inside the top 150 the rest of the way. And that's a little bit sad considering the upside there. Let's get to the Charlotte Hornets. What a mess for LaMelo Ball, as it is every single season. He can't stay on the floor. I'm not going to mess around with that. He's been a top 50 guy per game in 8-cat leagues, so a 9-cat league's not so great. The shooting's been off. He can't stay, like the ankle is whatever it is. And it's just we don't got to talk about LaMelo Ball, do we? No. Let's not. Let's move on. Let's get to the Brandon Miller show. He's back. He's taken a ton of shots. Had a big game the other night. The big poppy numbers are kind of there. I think the buy low chance might be done. You could play the ranks game and shoot somebody over his ranks and hopefully they'll be like, oh, that guy's not that good. But I don't think he's going to hit 35% of his shots all season. I do recognize and respect the fact that Charlotte could go off the rails. But you know what? They kind of got some quality dudes there. Con Knippel is playing extraordinarily well. We'll talk about him in a second. But like Ryan Kalkbrenner, it's not like there's a confusion about what he does on the floor. Miles Bridges is not like tons of confusion about what he does on the floor. A little bit of a chucker mentality there. But I think with those 4 players and the occasional LaMelo Ball showing, or LaMelo Ball plays basketball, I can talk. I think Brandon Miller can be good within that context. So we're not going to just assume he's going to hit just 35% or 38% from the field. I think Brandon Miller is going to get comfortable. Teammates are going to get comfortable with him. Maybe he'll take a few less difficult shots. That stuff can kind of even out over time. And maybe that is a little bit of the concern here, is he's getting a lot of grenades at the end of the clock. But overall, when that regresses, he's going to be playing in the top 20 range. And I don't think anybody's thinking of him at all like a top 20 player. Right now, just 125 per game in 8-cat leagues. Of course, that's with the bad field goal percentage. I think people are looking at him as like a top 75 guy right now. And I think he might end up being a 3rd-round player. So Brandon Miller, try to make a deal for Brandon Miller is the takeaway there. Miles Bridges just cruising. He's going to mop up minutes. There's not a lot to talk about there. But Con Knippel, I would there's every year I'll have like 3 or 5 players, something like that, where I either missed, didn't see that they were going to be good, or thought they were good and they were going to be bad. It always leaves a mark. And I just think about it all season long. Totally healthy, right? Well, Con Knippel might be that guy. I saw the film, and sure, I'm not a college scout. I don't do all that. I do it right before draft season, and I try to do the best I can. And I do feel like you should be able to see players play for like 5 or 10 minutes and kind of know what they're all about. But I saw him. I did not think he would be able to play defense. I did not think that he had enough intangibles or versatility in his game. And he's just come in and just completely wiped me out on that. Now, there's going to be some shooting regression here. There's some downside if things get bad in Charlotte. These are things that are true. But I mean, this dude's just tearing it up. And I think he's going to probably be a mid-round value the rest of the way. That's what he's done to date this season. He's a top 55 value in 8-cat leagues. So congratulations for those who drafted Con Knippel with their last pick or wherever they drafted him. And I think it's looking good for him, not only just this season, but as an NBA player. So great stuff there. Ryan Kalkbrenner, I get some questions about him nowadays. I think people are a little concerned about whatever injury, if it's the ankle or the theoretic what if he's going to be good enough to kind of dodge all of this stuff. And I just think it's pretty simple with him. If he's on the floor and he's getting 27 minutes per game, maybe there's some dips, but he's going to be available on the floor in the places that a guy his size with his nimbleness and awareness, he's actually pretty good underneath the hoop. Like, he gets to the right spot and he gets the ball up without bringing it down. That's why his field goal percentage is so high. And I think Kalkbrenner is kind of just a safe bet. Now, in an 8-cat league, not as good as a 9-cat league. In a 9-cat league, he might be an easy mid-round value. In an 8-cat league, it's kind of flirting with top 100 value. So Ryan Kalkbrenner is not dying. And for those of you who are worried about Ryan Kalkbrenner, just don't worry. Let's get to the Chicago Bulls. We get a ton of Josh Giddey questions. I just think he needs to improve at the foul line. If he does that, I think these ranks look a lot better. And I think with Chicago in general, yes, we're going to be worried that all these other players are either on their way out the door or they lose confidence in what Chicago's all about for this season. We've even got beat writers talking about that openly. A lot of guys, their contracts are either ending or they're basically just not going to be there next year. It might be like 9 out of 12 players. So all these dudes start to play for their own agenda, and it gets a little bit bad on the defensive side. And I think that's what somebody like Nikola Vucevic is upset about, is players are just not about to just run through a brick wall for the Chicago Bulls team. So you're starting to see that happen. And what does it do to a guy like Josh Giddey? I don't think much. I think Chicago always wants the 8 seed or the 10 seed. That's what they're known for. I don't think they're going to just give up on Josh Giddey, even if they have Josh Giddey and 5 dudes, and that's it. And then nobody good. It'll be fine. I think Josh Giddey probably could even improve with lesser players around him. I think that the free throw is really the thing that we're talking about there. And if he gets that improved, he'll be in the top 15 to 20. If he doesn't, he'll be in the top 20 to 30. Now, Kobe White's a fun one because he's, I guess, on the trade block. I mean, I don't know what to think these days. It seems like a little bit of marketing out there. But Kobe White was going to be a top 40-ish guy this season. And I really think he still will be a top 40-ish guy. There's risk here. There's also some upside that he has a pretty efficient fantasy game and might have a wide open ramp in Chicago. He might have a wide open ramp wherever he goes. But that stat set, while it's lacking in defensive stats, it's super efficient on the shooting sides. You get lots of points, you get lots of goodies. And the most important thing is he is that good. And he plays well next to Josh Giddey. And Josh Giddey makes Kobe White play well. So I'll be hoping that Kobe White stays in Chicago for that reason alone. But I think you got to respect what Kobe White brings to the table, even though it's been a bumpy start. Calf injuries are really interesting right now. It's not that there's probably more calf injuries. It's that there are either more classifications of calf injuries, and there's also an increase in the risk management of calf injuries. So we're just hearing a ton about this. And with Kobe, I think that he's just basically kind of somewhere in the middle with that stuff. He didn't have a great one. He's kind of gone through that curve and he's back into the mix now. And we'll find out a lot about that calf injury, but it's not, he's injured right now and it's going to be 3 or 4 weeks back. He's back and we're going to find out right now if he'll be the top 40 player that he can be. So I'll be a little aggressive with Kobe White. Nick Vucevic, I'm not going to be aggressive with. I think that he's got a little bit too much downside, and his is a guy that's kind of proven me wrong. He's proven everybody wrong in terms of fantasy in recent years. But man, if he gets traded to a place that's not pro Vucevic, he's going to be a 25-minute guy. And really, that's at this point in time in his career, he should be playing 25 to 27 minutes on a team that's got a lot of defense around it in the front court. And they also need a center that stretches the floor, which everybody does. But, he's a little bit of a fit now. You got to fit Nick Vucevic into something, not the other way around. Teammate Modest Bacelis is way more spicy than any of these 3 guys that I was talking about, because you got the potential upside and you've got the bad performance to date. He's got the big name, and you got this question of whether Billy Donovan's just going to give him his blessing at some point. And I think it's an 80 to 90% chance that actually happens. I just don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to be this month. I don't know if it's going to be February. I don't know if it's going to be April. So the good news is I think you can have Modest Bacelis for a song right now. I think you can toss over a top 100 player, and whoever has Modest Bacelis is just getting tired of it. And they're like, I think you're taking a bad deal. And I think they will give you Modest Bacelis in a top 100 range, or maybe even a top 90 or 80. I think if you did that deal, you could do that deal not worried about your ROI. I think you could know I'm going to get generally the ROI I need back, make sure the stat set all works out, of course. But then at that point in time, you have all of the upside. So I think you get a lot of upside here for relatively low risk. And that's why I like Modest Bacelis as a trade target. Let's get out of Cleveland. Let's go to Chicago. Let's get to Cleveland. Evan Mobley. Wow, that's a sad trombone sound. At least 2 to 4 weeks here as he's dealing with it right now. And I don't know if the recent foul shooting is a trend, and I'm not sure that we can even treat it as a trend now that he's going to be out. That stuff is rhythmic. Like players that miss X amount of free throws, that are whatever Y percentage shooters, they get it like fired up about it. It's the guy that missed the free throw at the end of the game that they needed to have, and then he's got to take the second one, and he better make that one, and he makes it so much of the time once you've missed that first one or whatever the situation is. And I think what we saw from him is that he's been hitting about 75% of his threes over the last 3 weeks. That's a massive improvement for him. That's been easily the biggest drag against his value. And then you have this overall, we didn't see Evan Mobley become like option 1A on offense or anything this season. It's been mostly option B or option 2, 19 and 10 with 4 assists, 1.5 threes, 2.5 combined steals and blocks over the last 3 weeks. It's great. He's been inside of the top 20 during that span. That's what you drafted him for. Now, I don't know that you get the early second round production out of him in that, what we've seen over the last 3 weeks, or even going forward. I'm not sure Evan Mobley is the guy that we thought he was. And I was as high on Evan Mobley as anybody. I think it was actually ahead on Evan Mobley. It's just Cleveland's not really ready, I don't think, to turn the game over to him. And at the same time, they're going to still give Garland his shots. They're going to still give somebody like Jalen Tyson some shots. It's not a priority for Evan Mobley to be, quote unquote, 1B over there. And at the same time, Donovan Mitchell, I think last season, he gave everybody else the ball and he said, okay, I want to be a team guy. Oh my goodness, we won a bunch of games. Now you get a couple injuries and Donovan Mitchell's like, I want to be an MVP candidate. And also I want to get some of those touches back this season. And he's been going off. And at the same time, teammates are not, and Cleveland's losing. And so they will have to figure it out. And I don't know that Evan Mobley, getting injured is going to help Evan Mobley become some sort of a 1B, but that's the only way he gets the second round value, guys. And I think that we're going to need to accommodate for all of that. And now we've got this injury, and I don't know if there's a buy low potential here for Evan Mobley. I think people might just be inclined to hang on. I think if you could somehow trade Evan Mobley for a top 50 player, or if you could trade a top 50 player, or I don't think worse, but if you could get that kind of a player across in a deal and get him back, you're probably cooking, depending on which side of you are on that deal. So Evan Mobley, very disappointing. Not disappointing is Jalen Tyson. Jalen Tyson is locked. He is locked and loaded. The rest of the season, I don't think his production waxes or wanes. I mean, maybe on a game-to-game basis, but I think whether he starts, whether he comes off the bench, heck, I mean, maybe Max Strus comes back and eventually knocks him back a peg, but I don't even think that's true. I think Jalen Tyson is good enough both defensively and offensively to be able to justify the deployment, also to justify the production. I don't think we're looking at regression. I think this is just a good young player that got an opportunity, and he's taking the ball and he's running with it. Let's get to Darius Garland. This one's very spicy because he had a huge game just last night or the night before. I can't remember which one. He was hobbling in that game. The beat writers are like, I don't think he's going to get through this, foot injury. And Cleveland absolutely needs him right now. And he hasn't been able to play in all of the games lately. And so when he returned maybe a little early. Who knows? Now they need him, and he can't quite give them the every game presence, and he's out there hobbling. My theory is he's got two gears. He's got kind of hurt, and then there's going to be really hurt. We saw really hurt in the playoffs last year when he was basically nothing. And now we're seeing kind of hurt, and he's able to reach up and get you a good game. But this kind of hurt is so risky. He's got a history. I don't think you can treat this as a buy low. I'm ranking him accordingly, and we're moving on. I'm a little scared about Jared Allen, but I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about him because we got lots to get through. And as you guys are kind of sorting through your waiver wires and sorting through your teams, hopefully putting together some trades, and trying to leverage this information the best you can, drop a thumbs up on the video and subscribe to the Sports Ethos YouTube channel so you guys don't miss any of our episodes. All right, let's get into the Dallas Mavericks. Anthony Davis, what a weird asset. Like, he's possibly a first-round producer. Okay, cool. Well, what do you do with this? Like, are they going to trade him, or are they going to not play him? Are they what's the story here? And we're now out of the Nico Harrison zone. So we've gotten past all of that. And I think they want to trade Anthony Davis. And I think Anthony Davis wants to be traded. But nobody can really hack it right now. We'll see if that actually happens during the trade deadline. But it's in everybody's best interest for him to play well. And so the acquiring team would kind of like the same. So unless a deal materializes in the background and everybody, it's one of those things that everybody knows about it. And then they go, okay, all right, now that we've agreed in principle, we don't want Anthony Davis on the floor. We don't want to risk this. Everybody's got their everything's got the plans are in order. We don't want to, have anything happen here. I think that's the only way that they don't put him out there for most of the games. I think they're going to be safe with injuries. They might try to buy back-to-backs in this situation, but if they just kind of go moderately with that plan and he plays, say, 80% of the remaining games, he's got some first-round potential in there. So Anthony Davis is a tough one, and I know a lot of people aren't going to be willing to trade for Anthony Davis. They're probably willing to trade out of Anthony Davis and just sort of get out of that game. But those who, if you have a team that needs some kick and you don't really see a path to a championship, you see a path to fourth place, and you're like, okay, I got to do something big here. Anthony Davis is one of those potential needle movers that's not for the faint of heart. But when has he ever been for the faint of heart? Cooper Flagg's been shooting better and more efficient lately. And maybe that's a reflection of Anthony Davis's return to the floor. He's been up in the top 40s the past 2 weeks, and then he added a big game on top of it this last night. And I'm just, the bottom line is it's steals, blocks, and threes for him. If he doesn't get into 3 and above, then I don't think he comes close to hitting his mark. He had 4 last night in the big game. So it's a lot of points, a lot of, the most points by an 18-year-old in a game ever. That kind of a big, heavy game. And the 4 cash counters. It's like good, but not great. So that's what we're going to be watching out for. And other than that, because the shooting's improved, because I think Dallas is now stronger, and I don't think they want to tank. And actually, that's a story in Dallas. They're writing about that right now. They don't want to tank. They probably want to angle to the 10 seed and just see what happens and see if they can maybe get lucky, play a few games, and improve trade values for guys like Anthony Davis and others in the process. So Cooper Flagg, though, he's going to have good teammates around him. I think that helps with efficiency. He's going to be clearly, as long as he's healthy and upright, they're going to have him out there so he can develop. And I do think even toward the end of the season, they'll continue to shift more and more responsibility his way. And then the key question will probably be when these guys start getting hurt and Dallas really starts falling off the map in late March and April, does Cooper Flagg have it in him to stay efficient when it matters in your fantasy playoffs? Or does he fall apart and you start to see some of the rookie wall and some of maybe, he's got a shoulder thing and all the dings that you get being the man in the NBA, that stuff adds up and he's going to have to fight through it. So where am I going with it? Well, you're going to have to get a B150 and find out. Let's get to Ryan Nembhard real quick. We saw him get some assists last night, and I think what it showed me is a little bit of staying power. And yeah, Brandon Williams wasn't playing in that game, but I still look at Nembhard as the guy that's going to kind of make everything tick and make sure the trains run on time in Dallas rather than another scorer shooter that Brandon Williams has been. I think Ryan Nembhard is the guy that they need to keep on the floor, but there's all sorts of issues with defense. And, can you consistently count on Ryan Nembhard to play more than 26 minutes per night? And I do think he needs to play more than 26 minutes per night to get the late round value, but I do like him to have the inside track there. Shout out Daniel Gafford. He gutted out 13 minutes of ankle injury play, but he's on his way back. And hopefully they did all the right stuff and they can just get him to a threshold of playing 20 to 25 minutes per night. If that's the case, I want to just make sure everybody knows that this is a guy that at some point in time last season was running at first round value. Probably better to project him at top 75 value if everything's going well. But this is a guy who can climb the ranks real fast, as was, I also want to shout out Najee Marshall for being a top 75 guy right now. Probably worth evaluating in the later rounds, but playing well right now. and not getting the respect. Let's get to the Nuggets. Nikola Jokic, obviously the undisputed king of fantasy basketball, and we move on. Jamal Murray, playing really well. I think Denver's going to be careful with injuries, but I think that the vibes are right. I think his abilities are there. There's not even a question at all about whether it'll be productive enough. I just think this is his season. I was a little aggressive with Jamal Murray in the initial preseason B150, and I'm going to be even more aggressive with Jamal Murray going forward. It's scary. It is what it is, but this guy, and I think Nikola Jokic, realized that not only is the task at hand going to be extraordinarily tough, and I think they're going to want to stay sharp all season long. Also, a lot of responsibility on their shoulders just in general because they're all banged up. But I think that they realize that NBA mortality is quick, and these things they can shift really, really quick. And they've got a recipe, thanks to Aaron Gordon, that can beat the Thunder and can beat the Spurs. So I think they're going to run through the tape, and I think that's going to be great for folks who took a chance on Jamal Murray, who is quite risky. Peyton Watson's fading, Cam Johnson's fading, Christian Brown's had a really rough season. We'll see when he returns if he can get back on the right side of the ledger. Otherwise, we move on to the Detroit Pistons. Cade's doing great. Not going to talk too much on him. Jalen Duren has slowed down a little bit, and I think this one's one where you can actually get some value shift here. Duren started off just on fire. I mean, he looked explosive. And the questions prior to that were, can he actually stay healthy? He's a big man. He's got ankle issues. It doesn't look like he's even jumping off the ground in past seasons. And here comes this dude at the same size running up and down the floor. All sorts of dribbling, we're talking behind the back dribbles into crossovers, into speed dribbles, and then to the cup. You're like, what the hell? That guy's 280 pounds. It's crazy. And now he's slowing down a little bit, just the eye test for me. And I wonder how long he, at his size, can just keep up that level of explosion. I don't think it's going to get any better as the season goes on. I mean, there's no denying that he has developed an amazing handle/shot making ability for a guy his size. It's still very, very underrated. It's limited to close range a little bit, though I do think he has more range than people give him credit for. I just think people consider Jalen Duren at this point in time more of a top 20 guy. And that's not, I think, where this is heading. I think it's heading the other direction. So check the B150 for the final ranks there. Asar Thompson, even more of a spicy topic. He got drafted, and I was one of them. I drafted him in like the 6th round or the 5th round. I can't remember which one. Thinking this guy had it, quote unquote, it, and having, this ability to ascend higher than we had thought he could in terms of defensive ability. And then on the offensive side, thinking, okay, there's a facsimile of him over in Houston that plays pretty well on the ball. And this guy should be able to follow in his footsteps and be more of a producer than he has been. Well, what's happened is he can't hit free throws. He hasn't improved his numbers. I think teams are zoning up the Pistons in large part due to him. And yeah, there's some help involved. I mean, Jalen Duren's not a dead eye shooter or anything, but like Asar Thompson, Cade Cunningham, you want to pack the paint against him. Teams are zoning them up, and it's put Detroit on a question of what they want to do, I believe, with Asar Thompson long-term, whereas before it was like no discussion whatsoever. Now guys are available via trade, theoretically. I don't know if that's actually true. And they all want Asar Thompson. I think Detroit's been spending a lot of time asking themselves, is Asar Thompson worth passing up what's in the box? You always take what's in the box. No, I'm kidding. I think with Asar Thompson, just flat out, the value is not going to be good this year. I don't think there's space for a breakout, and I don't think he has the skills for a breakout. And I don't know that he's going to have a switch flip mentally. I've seen so many mental errors. I've watched so much Detroit basketball over the last few years. So many mental errors just not being in the right spot. When you compound that on top of the shooting issues and the fact that if he gets fouled, he went 1 for 7 last night. Like, it's not good. There's a lot of issues. I think you move him to power forward, you still start him, and you put Tobias Harris in the reserve unit, and then that will make the shooting issue go at least a little bit better. Isaiah Stewart's been good. We're not talking Tobias Harris. We will laugh at myself for Dennis Jenkins, though I still believe in the evaluation. That's just the opportunity is not there. So at some point in time, we'll be talking about Dennis Jenkins again. But get your shots in now while you can. Let's get to the Golden State Warriors. We got Steph Curry. Hasn't lost a step. And I think we can just evaluate him in a risk context as an age-appropriate risk. You know, he's an older player. He's as in shape as any player his age, maybe ever. This guy outruns everybody on the basketball floor. So we can't really say anything about his body and his conditioning or even his ability to hold up. I think he's going to be more susceptible to ankle injuries and things like that, the random stuff. And so, like, we've been basically treating him with kid gloves, I think, in the fantasy realm, calling him a second rounder. I got aggressive and had him, I think, in the first round. I'd have to look. Really excited to have Stephen Curry on my team. And I just think he's one of the best players of all time. I would have him on my Mount Rushmore, and I still need to select the other three. And one of them will not be LeBron. So there you go. Jimmy Butler is another success story this season. I think, as Doc was saying on the earlier show, if the Warriors start losing, this is where things could go south for Jimmy Butler. But other than that, I think he's just locked in. I mean, Lord knows that they need Jimmy Butler to be Jimmy Butler in Golden State. And I think he can be Jimmy Butler, and I think he wants to be Jimmy Butler, and I think he wants to play more than he's accustomed to playing in the past. And that's why I went to the well one more time for Jimmy Butler this season. It's worked out so far, and he's been a top 36 guy per game this season. So I just think he's kind of locked in, with the one caveat being, if it falls apart in Golden State, if the ownership doesn't want the coach and, all the things, and Draymond speaks up, and then, somebody has a Jell-O pudding pop, I don't know. We'll have some problems in Golden State. But Jimmy Butler, I'm not going to fade Jimmy Butler. I'm just going to ride with this. Draymond Green's pretty much dead to me in fantasy. DeAnthony Melton's kind of interesting right now. He has not been blowing the doors off of anything or anything like that, but I do think he's probably at this stage better for this team than Brandon Podziemski. Buddy Hield is Buddy Hield. He just does Buddy Hield stuff, so he's kind of in his own lane. But Brandon Podziemski, I don't think the team is kind of vibing with him, and I think they are vibing with Melton, and I think Melton shows the polish. I don't think he's as slow as I thought he would be coming off of this kind of an injury. I thought he'd lose a step. He, at least at this point in time, I mean, it's not a lot of basketball that's been played, but at least at this point in time, he looks fresh, and with that, some of that theoretic late round value could come into play. I'm not going to get over my skis there. Learn from that one. But I do like Melton, and I do think Moody will have a real good shot at late round value. I think he's in a funk right now, and those defensive numbers were bound to regress. Anyway, let's get to Houston. Kevin Durant, Alperen Şengün, I think they're just going to duke it out, and I think they'll both be fine in fantasy leagues. I just wonder, like, when the games get to be more important, will Kevin Durant demand the ball from Alperen Şengün just a little bit more? And then in the playoffs, how does that look in the playoffs? And what happens defensively with Alperen Şengün? Can they hold it all together? They've had one of the better defensive arrangements, one of the better defensive coaches to hide those issues. But as we saw with Golden State, they were just able to pick them apart. Amin Thompson was a huge fun valuation this season. And even as we've been going on this season, shooting high 40s from the field, which is double digits worse from both the field and deep compared to last season. And then on the other hand, he's hitting 80% of his free throws. So great job, right? And that's probably, to me, more important, because I think a lot of his issues this year with the basketball is the fact that it's super clogged up, and he is almost just a kind of station to station guy, not getting a lot of his downhill, where he uses strength and athleticism to get to the high percentage shots. I think he's taken a few more threes per game, but not that much. It's just the deployment. So if he's going to hit his free throws, hell, next season, if something changes in Houston, I think Amin Thompson is really onto something here. I just don't know if it's going to happen this season. And then the 1.3 blocks per game last season going down to a half block per game this season, that's brutal. And it's a little bit of a thing where you got all these 7-footers playing, in the front court, and now he's off in the back court covering guards and away from the blocks game. It's a thing. The further away you play from the hoop, whether it's on the offensive side or the defensive side, generally bad things happen. Not always true, but this blocks decrease in value just not really sitting well. And despite all that, I might actually fade the fade, and I might actually buy into Amin Thompson. And you'll be a little bit surprised when you see the B150 rank for Amin Thompson after all of what I just said. But get there and check it out. Reed Sheppard. There's so much Reed Sheppard kind of fading, and people not calling Reed Sheppard a good player, or whatever you want to call Reed Sheppard. The fact that they were not able to add a point guard in Houston, really realistically, and this is a guy that they drafted 3rd overall, and for all intents and purposes, when given minutes, he didn't look that lost on the floor. And in the first game, everybody down on Reed Sheppard because he was not good against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Fast forward to now, and this is a guy who's got a really good shot to finish inside the top 50 in fantasy leagues by totals. So it'll be just continuing to chug. And what he does that's super interesting is he gets you defensive stats. He gets you about 2 per game for a guy that everybody talks about bad defense with. The efficiencies are going to be whatever they're going to be. He's not going to take a ton of shots. Right now, he's not even playing a ton of minutes, but he's getting you the value you need. Right now, it's a top 85 per game value in an 8-cat league. That plays. You just roll it out there every single night, and that plays. And if he does get a bigger role, my concerns will just be that it takes from efficiency on the defensive side, efficiency from the shooting, the field goal percentage and the 3-point percentage, and that he doesn't get as much value gain as you would think he would get. But Reed Sheppard, I think an easy B150 win. And I think it's something you should buy into. I don't think people are giving Reed Sheppard the respect that he deserves. I think you theoretically could get him for a top 100 guy, and that's ridiculous. Jabari Smith Jr., I think because there aren't as many players, is going to have dips that stay more in the late round range and less in the sub 150 range, which has been the case in past seasons. So I like Jabari this year. I don't think I'm going to get too far out ahead, but I think he could flirt with top 100 value, especially on a totals basis. And then Tari Eason, I'm not really going to go here this year. I think with the no back-to-backs already being hurt, also questions about whether or not he'll actually get the production. He's only been a top 130 per game guy per year. That's not very Tari Eason like. He's more of a top 50 guy. And I do expect he will improve, but I think the name value is too big and the juice won't be worth the squeeze, and it will also be inconsistent. Let's get to the Indiana Pacers, where Pascal Siakam really had a nice turnaround that he was working with here. I just don't know if it's going to continue. The Pacers, a little bit of a turnaround in general. They got their point guards back. It's just efficiency with Pascal Siakam. The shots, the minutes, the role, I don't even think he's going to want to take time off if the year gets bad. Maybe he will, but I think this is a guy that just puts his hard hat on, or whatever metaphor you want to use, and he goes in there and he just does his thing. But the percentages have been bad on the year. So there's only been a top 90 value on a per game basis in 8-cat leagues. I think there's potential for all of that shift to shift in the right direction. I'm just not as excited about it as I would have been during the preseason. If you had said, hey, everybody's going to be moderately healthy, I would have had Pascal Siakam inside the top 50. Right now, I don't. Now, for some of the better stuff, Jay Huff. Wow, dude, you're going to be the Indiana Pacers leading blocks guy if you keep it up. And he's playing 24 minutes a game. So he's just Mr. Blocks in Indiana. And this is the thing I've been talking about with Jay Huff to Sacramento Kings fans for a while. I mean, you go and you get Domantas Sabonis. You are incompetent if you did not try to make a deal for Jay Huff. You have like 3 players in the NBA that you could pair with Domantas Sabonis. And if your front office didn't have a clue about Jay Huff, they shouldn't be in the game. And if they weren't empowered to go after a Jay Huff, then, well, you probably got the issue that you have right now. But Jay Huff, finally, and I do believe that the point guards returning had something to do with this, has become a consistent player for them. He's getting you threes, he's getting you blocks, he's getting you points. The efficiency's fine because he doesn't take a lot of shots. And at this point, I just don't know what his ceiling is, because what if they played him 30 minutes per game? But I'm going to assume that they play him something in the ballpark of 25 minutes per game at the most. I don't know that his knee can handle it. And at that rate, he's pretty much a mid-round guy. And in a 9-cat league, he gets a lot better as well. So Jay Huff, great job. And is a tough guy to value because each additional increase or a decrease in minutes swings his value so much. I mean, he was getting 15 minutes per game in Memphis and bringing back top 150 value. And we would count each additional minute. And we'd get to 17. It was really good. Andrew Nembhard, not a lot of wiggle to his fantasy game. Not a lot to talk about there. Benedict Mathurin, points league guy. I don't think there's much to talk about with him. I think that you worry about efficiency with him in general, and it gets worse with each player that they remove. So I would be rooting for health in Indiana if I had Benedict Mathurin. Aaron Nesmith coming back soon, probably more of a top 100 guy this season, given the issues in Indy. Also hasn't been able to stay on the floor very much the last couple seasons, so some risk in there. McConnell hasn't taken the leap. Isaiah Jackson's a deep league plotter. Jarris Walker every now and then shows up, but then goes back into his low efficiency hole. LA Clippers, James Harden falling apart. Kawhi Leonard, who knows? What's Kawhi Leonard's going to do? I mean, there's no denying the per game punches there. There's also a huge question about what the Clippers would like to do with their season. Would Kawhi Leonard like to quit? I mean, the off the court drama surrounding both he and the franchise and this subsequent implosion, the way I look at it is if he was a chair, that's 3 legs knocked right out. If you want to be optimistic, it's 2.5 legs, and they're pretty much done in Clipper land. I mean, there's no reason at all, especially if they are struggling the way they're struggling right now, to take him in particular and add more wear and tear to him this season. So it's a tough rank, but the per game pop is there. And those in playoff formats, you're really rooting for the Clippers to run off a 9-1. And I think they did that once in the past. I want to look into that, but it's not really relevant to this. I'm just more curious than anything. Ivica Zubac, one of the safer front half of the middle round plays you're going to find. So no surprises there. John Collins, it's not happening for him. And who knows how much is him and how much is the Clippers. I think with Collins, I'm more inclined to say that he needed everything to go super well, and he needed to keep his skills up at the highest level. And there's just too much erosion to his game to feel like, oh, it's all the Clippers, or it's all the lineup, or it's all this, or it's all that. And we've seen the switch flip with him, every so often. But I mean, it's fantasy. What have you done for me lately? And also, by the way, you have a history of doing this. So I don't think once we got the first 10 to 20 games of a snapshot, I don't think we need to look at him anymore. Lakerland, Luka, full control for Luka Ball. That's great. Hitting 80% of his free throws. That's great. If not for a bunch of guys that were crazy, the Wembys and the Sheas and the Jokic's of the world, we'd be like, oh my God, this is the best fantasy player ever, or something like that. But no, he's just the 4th or 5th best fantasy player, and he's going to do that for the foreseeable future. Austin Reeves next to Luka, completely unfair. I mean, Luka is as dangerous as anybody in the league. Austin Reeves might have a better handle than him. And Austin Reeves has different kinds of moves. And it's not as so self-contained, where like Luka can just kind of do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, however he wants, and also draw a foul at pretty much any time. Reeves is more shifty and more speed-based. But the two of these guys next to each other is just freaking awesome. And I think, if they ever get a good defender this trade season, like a really good defender, and I don't know how they're going to pull that off, they'd be more interesting. They're not going to do anything in the playoffs because you got to have defense. And those two guys, even if they ramp it up, are not going to play defense. Even if LeBron ramps it up, they're not going to play defense. They can't play defense. They will lose, and it's going to be fun to watch. And as for LeBron, we finally got LeBron producing in the top 50 range. And that was all I needed to know to just sort of kind of green light that he's going to be a top 50 guy. Went on the floor the rest of the season. And that's great for a guy who's 73 years old. DeAndre Ayton just doing fine. I'll shout out Jake LaRavia for being a good basketball player, but not a great fantasy play. I didn't have a lot of stock in LaRavia as far as like overall rank, but I do believe that he is the path to them winning, and they will slowly figure that out as the year goes on, and we will move on. Memphis, Zach Edey. I don't know if they're putting the kid gloves on him or what. I just know a man of his size, you got to be careful with him, especially for the long haul. And we don't know when exactly he will be returning. And it feels like they will try to make another run at making Zach Edey a top 50 fantasy asset. Obviously not their goal, but in terms of their deployment and what they want to get out of him, I do think they just want to see how much they can get out of him. Jaren Jackson Jr. had a good game the other night. We talked about it in the show earlier, but this is one game out of, I think he had maybe one other game like this season. I don't know. It's been so bad for Jaren Jackson, producing in the top 100 range on the season, and really no spunk. Minutes are down, no commentary on the matter. I mean, we've heard a lot about Ja Morant, not as much about Jaren Jackson Jr. And at the same time, his absence in the box score this season opened the door for Zach Edey to do this. So we kind of want to look at these two as a pendulum of sorts. And if Jaren Jackson starts crushing it, then we're going to need to reduce what we believe Zach Edey can do going forward. When he returns, in the meantime, I just can't bet big on a guy that, for what appears to be a soft tank, probably gets more kid gloves, not just now with this injury, but the next injury and all of the things. And by the way, he was producing at a peak. I mean, we used to look at Zach Edey and think, okay, this would be great if he could put up top 80 numbers for us. Top 100 would be great. Well, he came in and he just walloped everybody. And now I think the level's been changed in Zach Edey through the good play. And I got to credit him for that, because at his size, to be able to flash in the paint and make himself available and get around all the players he has to get around, because remember, everybody's at his feet and they're trying to get the ball as he brings it down. He's been super nimble, and he's been out there doing the thing that people thought, what if Zach Edey could be good in the NBA? Well, he's been doing it. It's just a very spicy rank, and I don't think we can bet into it as much as I want to. It's usually the kind of player I want to bet into. But in this case, I just think with the season going the way that it is, that we can't take that risk. Why take that risk when you can just take Santi Aldama? You could take, theoretically down the road, you could take Ty Jerome, but Cam Spencer. I want Cam Spencer and I want Santi Aldama on my team these days. I don't want Ja Morant on my team. I actually put out a video of Ja Morant getting hurt last night, and it got like 1,000 likes immediately and like 100 people commenting on it, which in today's day and age on Twitter is like everybody that's on the platform at one given time is talking about Ja Morant. Everybody's done with him. I think Memphis is done with him. I think that he doesn't really control his future in the NBA the way that other stars even do. He's not a superstar at this point in time. I like the game. I don't like the stuff off the floor, and we've all talked about that ad nauseum. But, in terms of like where he plays and how he plays and what this all looks like, I do think for Memphis, it makes sense that he plays well, and I think they'll try to accommodate that. I think they'll give him minutes. I think whenever he doesn't want to play because he doesn't want to jeopardize his future career, or he doesn't want to play for whatever other reason, or he just simply gets hurt, I think that he and or the team will pull him back relatively quickly, and I just don't think he's going to be a part of their future in Memphis. So Cam Spencer, come on down. I think Cam Spencer's a must-roster player for the rest of the year. That's awesome. So we'll take a look and keep an eye on that. Santi Aldama, been B150 guy. Just, that one was kind of easy. And it's not that he's going to just like tear the doors off and just be awesome. He's going to be a top 100 player, I think. Most nights, there will be some dips. He had a bad one last night. There'll be some big ones. And I just think he's going to be part of their future, and he's going to be a part of their availability, and maybe some problems in March and April. We'll see if Memphis can kind of keep it up. It's not that hard to stay involved in the 10 seed. That's been one of the things that we've been noticing about certain teams with certain builds. Talking reality, not fantasy. They kind of want to play it out. And so Santi Aldama easily must roster and easily a target that we want to have on our team. Cedric Coward needs to add defensive stats, and that's my message for him and anybody else that wants to talk Cedric Coward. Everything else is overwhelmingly positive. Everything else is overwhelmingly positive. He needs defensive stats in the worst way, because if that's not happening, his overall value, whether it's now or next season or the season after that, is going to be severely compromised. Let's get to the Miami Heat. Tyler Hero gets another toe injury and another missed game. He had 4 days off. The only silver lining I can think of, other than it's just garden variety, we're going to take a game off, and that's that. It was hurting, and there's nothing to see here, and it's fine. The issue is that there's just a lot of pretzel making to try to keep Tyler Hero as like a quote unquote healthy guy that's going to play top 20 ball the rest of the way. I had some Tyler Hero. Tyler Hero was falling into the hundreds, it felt like, in drafts, in competitive drafts. And I was like, I'll take Tyler Hero. Why not? What's the risk here? And comes out, starts in the top 10 posture. Everything looks great. Now this injury is kind of stealing the fun from my party. But I mean, the potency's there. I just think we do need to really, really factor in some risk for this guy. And that might take us into kind of a negative position on Tyler Hero. And maybe it's a buy low moment. Absolutely. I mean, maybe the market's so soft on Tyler Hero that you could get out there and do something crazy like a top 75 pick and get Tyler Hero, who I do think will be a first or probably an early round player. The rest of the way, it's just not the top 20 version of Tyler Hero that theoretically he could have been this season. His teammate Bam Adebayo just cruising at a top 50 level. I got no qualms about Bam Adebayo. He's just going to do his thing. He's going to be a top 50 guy. Him and Asia Wilson will have a child that takes over the NBA one day, and we'll all be talking about it. Khalil Ware is another player we're constantly talking about because he's getting 19 minutes a game, and it just pisses people off to no end. And I think people get scared about that, and they look at the kind of the 3 category lines. It'll be points, boards, and blocks. And they go, where's the beef? And I just can't say enough about Khalil Ware. You got to hang on. You got to just like wait because he is a Bam Adebayo injury away from being a top 20 to 30 guy. And in the meantime, he'll be a top 60 guy. I mean, there's nothing to cry about here, but I do think people who aren't dialed into ranks and like stats, maybe the intermediate or even the beginning users are like, Khalil Ware, what have you done for me lately? And be right there to help them out. Norm Powell, I think, is a little bit more of a buy low target with this Tyler Hero news than he was a week ago. So maybe give Norm a little bit of extra love, but I don't think we want to forget that Norm Powell is a player that starts off quick, gets injured, pardon me, and you're sitting there going, I had a top 30 guy. Now I got nothing, and you could have sold and you could have sold and you could have sold. And it's so easy to sit there and just hang on to that production and ignore the risk. And every year it happens like that. But anyway, at this point in time, he's got a little bit more buy low appeal. Let's get out of Miami. Let's get to Kevin Porter and the Bucks. What are we doing with Kevin Porter? All right. He's absolutely tearing it up. He's been a top 11 guy to start his season in a small amount of games. Even when the games are bad, he's picking up some sort of stats for you. And I think it was pretty simple to see Kevin Porter Jr. being good this season. That was just an easy one. I didn't think it was a 3-headed point guard race. I don't even think it's a 2-headed point guard race at this point in time. And that's with Ryan Rollins getting a ton of pub, being super good, having a great year. I don't think there's a question in Milwaukee, especially with old school Doc Rivers, who's going to value things like, being able to penetrate and get into the paint, and play some form of isolation basketball where Porter has an edge on Rollins. Regardless of all of that, Porter's going to get unlimited ramp here to do whatever he's going to do. Now, he's completely shooting over his head right now. That's not going to continue. Where do we rank Kevin Porter in terms of trade value and rest of season value? I'll tell you what, you could go get the B150 and find out, but it's going to be more than I think the average analyst has for a Kevin Porter rank. I think Kevin Porter might have like a top 40, top 50 kind of appeal out there in the marketplace. That's fine. And people might even think that Giannis is coming back to ruin things. If Giannis comes back at any point in time, I don't think it's going to crush Kevin Porter Jr. I think Kevin Porter Jr. might drop into those top 40, 50 ranges for a little bit. But Giannis is not going to be playing all season. Giannis is going to be all over the place. And even if Giannis stays, there's a chance Kevin Porter is exactly what Giannis needs to have the experience he wants to have, which is to play winning basketball. You have to have somebody that defenses respect, not just on a bull rush, which is what Giannis can do, but on a shoot and drive combo. You need that. You need to create 2-on-1s organically, not always with a screen, though Kevin Porter Jr. does love himself a screen. You need that. And Giannis will want that to be in play. And as far as Ryan Rollins goes, I just think he's a top 75 guy going forward. He's got a few holes here and there in his game. I'm not sold that this 47% shooting that he's at right now is the standard. I think that maybe he's a 44% guy, which is kind of good, not great depending on the context, but I think that's where he's going to land. And some of this efficiency that we've seen is going to be tailing off here shortly. But still a solid play. Ryan Rollins, I think a lot of us were excited about him in the preseason. He's gotten his opportunity. He's going to continue to get his opportunity. He's as locked in as it gets. Let's get to Miles Turner. I'm fading the crap out of Miles Turner, and that does not, feel like a lock. It feels like this guy theoretically should, given his contract, given his standing, given the play that we've seen. And this guy's a top 5 big man in the NBA, powering his Indiana Pacers to the finals. And he's had so much success. But the problem is he doesn't have Tyrese Halliburton anymore. He needs somebody and a team philosophy, I might add, that values getting him the ball in space as well as on the move. And they just don't do that. He'll set a screen. He'll pop. It's slow. It's not that deliberate. It's not. The point in Indiana was to get Miles Turner the ball in that kind of action because it just loosens everything up for everybody else. That's not what they're running in Milwaukee. So whether it's the fact that I don't think Miles Turner can do anything with this particular crew minus Giannis, or the fact that I don't know if he's happy right now. I think is he blindsided by his choice to go to Milwaukee? Was he thinking that this was actually going to work out? Who told him that? Why did he buy that? And now he's sitting there in the middle of a lost season with 106 per game production in 8 cat leagues, all the opportunity in the world to just take the ball and go. But he's not that kind of a player. He needs teammates to assist him to be good and assist him in the style of play. Those screens where you throw the ball ahead to Miles Turner and you're literally following your own pass to then set the screen. It happens in a blink of an eye. he comes around the corner. He does whatever he wants to do. They're not running that stuff in Milwaukee. Bobby Portis, I think, will be a late round guy. Kyle Kuzma will be a top 200 guy. Not breaking any news there. And then before we move on to the Minnesota Timberwolves, one real quick ask. If you're not doing it already on Twitter, follow at Ethos Fantasy NBA. And we move on to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Anthony Edwards, foot injury. I'm just watching, not saying anything. I'm just watching. This is a guy that doesn't miss games. And those things can be a pretty big deal. Right now, they're classifying it as not a big deal in Minnesota. That would obviously change everything for this team if he was out. And I don't know that they would have players to kind of absorb all of the usage. They're pretty much a team where everybody gives what they've got, with some exceptions. But, for the most part, I think Jaden McDaniels is kind of good in his current usage and good in his current role. Zero questions about his role. He's going to cruise. Julius Randle, if he gets more opportunity, the efficiency is going to go even further south. He's ahead of the game right now in terms of efficiency. So not only is the pendulum going to swing in terms of his own efficiency, where he's going to regress and he's going to shoot the ball worse, it's also going to head more towards, if he's healthy, Anthony Edwards, who's kind of taken on a tact of starting seasons a little slow and then really gearing up as we get into February, March, and April. And so Julius Randle, a pretty good sell high candidate right now. We've been talking about this forever, and maybe people already bake that into the cake. But Julius Randle, I'm not going to be buying into Julius Randle, and you've heard me say that for years. Dante DiVincenzo, he has some lulls from time to time, but he's a big game player. I mean, this dude is not afraid of a big shot. It was like 1 for 7 the other night, and he had to hit a big shot. I believe it was against the Warriors and Steph. And of course, he took it and he made it. And it was necessary. And he's just going to chug his way to like top 80 or 90 value. Naz Reid, I think some of the production from Julius Randle has shifted over him. He's a solid top 100 guy the rest of the season. Rudy Gobert just had a child. Congrats, sir. No questions about his role. And of course, the declination is in effect. Way to say something nice followed by something not as nice. New Orleans Pelicans are kind of cool and quirky right now. I mean, I know everybody makes fun of Joe Dumars for betting the farm on Derek Queen, maybe not even needing to, but that part's debatable. I think we've seen enough reporting to where if he wanted the guy, he had to do what he needed to do. And I don't know if I would have done that. But Derek Queen is all sorts of fun right now. It's the cool thing is, like, even if he sucks and he's bad, he doesn't play defense, he doesn't run back, he's still going to be a late round value for you. Like, there's no questions about it. So you've got a locked in bet. If you picked up Derek Queen however many weeks ago when we said you got to go pick up Derek Queen, you are locked in, and now it's just a question of how high will he go. And obviously, they're going to want to see what they can get out of this guy. And at the same time, they're trying to win now, which is funny, and I'll use air quotes. But like, when that's mathematically impossible here in like a week or something, and I'm kidding, but you know what I mean? Like, then there's no reason other than to get Derek Queen triple doubles. Like, get him triple doubles so everybody says what a great job Joe Dumars did. Not that it matters, like, in terms of whatever, but like, just get him stats. It's the whole Tyreek Evans thing in Sacramento from like 15 years ago. It's just get him his Rookie of the Year award or whatever, as high up as he can get. And you get some of the people off your back in New Orleans, if they even care, by the way. I don't even know if ownership cares in New Orleans, but this is what Derek Queen's up to right now. And I think that, with him, he's probably going to play 27 plus minutes the rest of the way. And with that in mind, he's easily a late round or probably a middle round player. And you guys are going to probably, you're going to run into either you have Derek Queen and you're going to think, can I sell this guy for more than he's worth? Or you're going to be watching Derek Queen from afar and he'll have a stinker and you're going to be like, well, what should I pay to buy into Derek Queen? Well, in an 8-cat league, it's probably like a top 75 play. And we move on. Trey Murphy, he's all good. Herbert Jones. The one thing I'll note with Herbert is a really bad start, but he did have some explosiveness that he didn't have before the injury rest. So Herbert Jones at least has that one thing going for him. And I would consider him a kind of top 90, 100 ceiling guy in 8-cat leagues. And if that matters to you, if steals are a need, give him a look. Jordan Poole is an interesting one because, like Herbert Jones, he was reported as saying like he felt like that quad injury was really limiting him to start the year. He had a slow start and you got all these other players that are emerging. And Jordan Poole is just like a question mark, like barely any reporting on him. And I think people were looking at his production prior to going out and thinking maybe it's not going to happen for Jordan Poole in New Orleans this year. I mean, you got all these other guys that are more higher profile. And what's Jordan Poole all about, other than not playing defense and all the bad things we always associate with Jordan Poole? Well, he got right back in and he looks spry. And this is going to be a chance for Jordan Poole to reestablish top 75 value going forward. So Jordan Poole, not dead to rights in terms of what we think he's capable of. And that in itself is a win. Jeremiah Fears is having fun games. I just wish he had a better stat set. And that's just good. I'm just happy for the kid. Just get out there and get your buckets, kid. And we move on to Zion. It's so funny. Every now and then I'll get a comment like, I can't believe you recommended to drop Zion. Never a follow-up. Sadiq Bey, I would like to say he could stay in the top 100 range the rest of the season, but it's going to be contingent upon what's going on around him. But other than that, I think they like him out there mopping up stats. So that's nice. And then we get DeJounte Murray back at some point, and I threw a dart on where his fantasy value was inside the B150, and you can take a look at that. And one other thing I would say about this squad is Jose Alvarado's name has been kicked around in New York. And if Jose Alvarado goes, it will open up at least a little bit of usage. And it's only 20 minutes or so per game for Jose Alvarado, generally speaking. But they're impactful minutes. I think it will be more of an impact on their defense. I think it will be more of an impact on the box score than anybody in the world would ever give it credit for. But I do think Jose Alvarado is on his way out of New Orleans. So good luck to you, sir. I think you're landing in New York, but we'll find out. Speaking of New York, Karl Anthony Towns has space to improve. His shooting is the thing we're going to be watching to see if he can be a first-round value again. He had a couple blocks the other day, and it kind of moved his blocks average up. So he's in a decent spot. He's not a blocks guy. Some injury risk and some, small little degradations of his fantasy game, throughout the box score. But if he can get that shooting right, I think he could be inside the top 12. As for Mikal Bridges, it's undeniably a sell high element going on with him right now, just because of the OG Anunoby injury. But I do think that Mike Brown has cultivated a freedom within his game, and that Mikal's sort of just evolved from that moment, like not being passive, playing defense, getting defensive stats. I think the other wild card here that's kind of got me a little bit on more of I'm still saying sell high for Mikal Bridges. I've been saying sell high for a month now, even, is they don't have depth in New York. And you could talk to me about Jordan Clarkson and Landry Shamet and all the players. You could talk to me about those guys. They need somebody else. If this is a playoff run, and it most certainly is, right now you have zero chance. We're going to watch this game here. It's going to tip off in about an hour and a half. I've got the Spurs plus 2.5, whatever the number is over at FanDuel, whatever those odds are. I don't think they can compete with San Antonio. Maybe I'll be wrong and I'll get laughed at. But I just think that when you look at OKC, San Antonio, and I don't even think they'd have a shot against Denver. If you're New York, you got to add somebody for this playoff run. And if you add anybody good, and I'm not talking Jose Alvarado, I'm talking a little bit better than Jose Alvarado, another player, a real player. When that happens, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, and Josh Hart are the guys who are going to take the hit. So you have another layer of risk for Mikal Bridges, other than the fact that he's playing a little bit over his baseline or a lot over his baseline. And I think that baseline has moved up. I think that this fits, this works. This is definitely a Mikal Bridges win. Happy for him, a classic perennial B150 guy. But you have sell high elements here. So check out the B150 for the ranking there, so you know where to throw the dart on a sell high offer. Jalen Brunson, one of the safer plays in fantasy hoops. OG Anunoby, hopefully this is the injury that he gets, the one that he gets out of the way and he can just kind of keep going. He's an late early round guy. Josh Hart's an interesting one because nothing ever hit him. I thought that it was kind of crazy that Mike Brown likes pace and space, and everybody was so down on Josh Hart, and then he's hurt and he's performing poorly, and it all just made sense. Josh Hart was a top 50 guy in a lot of ranks, tumbled down toward 100, back up to 50 now as far as his current production and what you should expect going forward. Love the player, not understanding why everybody was so down on him early on, and it certainly looked like he was dead to rights. And so no misevaluation by anybody involved, but Josh Hart doing well, but very, if there's a sell high on Mikal Bridges, there's also a sell high on Josh Hart. And I think the same principles apply. Let's get to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, not too bad at basketball. Jalen Williams, not where we want him to be right now. He's been a top 30 guy since returning. I'm not going to hold that against him. I actually would argue that, my top NBA players, Nikola Jokic, I think you're probably going to have to put Victor Wembanyama somewhere in the top 3. I'll take my home cook and Stephen Curry as the second best player in the NBA. You guys can laugh at me, or you guys can say whatever you want in the comments. At Aaron Bruski on Twitter. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is on this list, obviously, but who's at number 5? I think it's Jalen Williams. I'll argue with somebody about this, but this dude is big. He's strong. He can handle. He can shoot. He sees the game. He's got a great attitude. This wrist injury is obviously a pretty big deal, but the fact that he's the other guy, and he hasn't been playing during this run, that's so freaking scary. I don't even know how to handle that. But Jalen Williams is a hell of a basketball player. Wow. Chet Holmgren, I think he's the guy that's going to kind of lose out here in Oklahoma City. I don't think they want to risk him getting hurt. So they're going to kind of keep him out every so often, and that's going to hurt his overall production. Isaiah Hartenstein, he's absolutely outproduced by sell high recommendation early in the season. So congrats to him. And he's just existing in this nice little space in Oklahoma City where he's not so good that they want to protect him every night. And he's not so bad, that he's in this like cycle of not being consistent. And I think he's just going to play until there's a time when it becomes super clear. Maybe they're like 74-1 or something, or 74-2. They lost a game where they stopped playing Isaiah Hartenstein. So he's been a good fantasy asset. Cason Wallace, steals guy, not much else right now. AJ Mitchell, late round guy. I think the conversation around him has shifted. And the question is, can he keep his late round potential going forward? And I'm kind of leaning no. Let's get out of Oklahoma City and into the Orlando Magic. Desmond Bane, I'd hoped for a faster integration here, but all the same principles that we've seen sort of play out over the last month of the Orlando Magic realizing that they go as far as Desmond Bane goes. It's not as far as Paolo Banchero, though he has the ball in his hands and he makes the decisions there. And it's not as far as Franz Wagner goes, because he does. These two players do what they do, and there's not any question about what they do or how they do it. Bane, and to another degree, Jalen Suggs, and anybody who can shoot the ball over the top of a defense, if they're going, Orlando is dangerous in the playoffs. If they're not going, Orlando's not dangerous in the playoffs. Not even talking about championships, just talking about in the East. Like, do they get upset in the first round? If they don't have a plan for Desmond Bane and also Jalen Suggs, but Desmond Bane especially, to be probably the key element in their offense, they just fail. And I think that they've seen that as they struggled early, got Bane going, got a little mojo, and now they have this window where Franz Wagner's out and Paolo gets to figure this out with a little less pressure because they'll have more touches, have more freedom. Wagner's not there needing his touches, and they can kind of figure out how to play. And we'll see how this all comes together when Franz Wagner gets back. But in terms of projections, we're kind of at this space with Bane where I have to respect the fact that Paolo and Franz might screw it up. We've got history that they have in the beginning screwed this up a little bit. But with all of that said, I think they've navigated a lot of this stuff. So if you bought low on Desmond Bane, congratulations. I had Desmond Bane really, really high in the initial B150. I want to say around 20, 25. Getting there on the power of more games played than he's accustomed to playing as well. I thought when you get traded for X amount of picks and you are, such a high profile acquisition, you bet your future on it, that this means show up and play some basketball and maybe, take care of whatever you got to take care of to make that happen. Obviously injuries are somewhat random, but I did think that there was an opportunity for Bane, who's generally viewed as a lack of availability guy, to be more available than usual, and that his shooting would be more required. And because of the weight of what was given to get him, that we would bet into Desmond Bane rather than not. And so far, so good. After the really, really slow start, he has been producing at a high level in the top 40 range and getting it done. And he's just going to keep racking up those games, I believe. And he was shooting like 97% from the free throw line for a really long stretch. So, shout out to him for being good there. And obviously that stuff matters. If in a category league or in a head-to-head league, the free throw percentage doesn't matter to you, that's going to be one reason that you're going to decrease the value of Desmond Bane. And while you're looking at all these B150 ranks, keep in mind that all of these are rated for either 8 or 9 cat leagues. This is not punt scenarios. It's not, we just don't believe in percentages around here. If you don't believe in percentages and the player you see ranked is either good or bad, just do an adjustment. You guys got this. I know you guys can handle that. But what we want to know is what's their pure value so you can extrapolate and make decisions from there. Speaking of that, this is a roto ranking for Paolo Banchero. I'm going to throw a dart and call him a 60 the rest of the way. The category deficiencies drive him down the ranks. This actually, he's been a 110 guy on the season. And as we were mentioning in the show earlier, it's like he's got 3 good categories and that's it. He doesn't get you defense. He doesn't get you threes. He gets you points, rebounds, and assists. And so just remember, as I'm talking about this, I feel like I'm actually giving Paolo Banchero a gift. I don't feel very confident that he can hit 60 the rest of the way. But then you just do this, you do the math, you do the sliders, get on to sportsethos.com and use all the tools and you can figure it out. I think that's enough. Oh no, we want to talk Jalen Suggs here and Anthony Black. Jalen Suggs is super interesting right now. He's a very good mid-round value in the top 60 range. And he's doing it in 25 minutes per game. And he looks like a player that appears to get hurt every single night. And there are just some players who do that. There's the Anthony Davises of the world in that style where it looks like he just needs to go to the bathroom. There's the Lucas who look like they just got shot and all the different things and they're right out there. And Suggs looks like he's like a football player, taking all sorts of contact at all times. And then, he had this groin injury the other day. He looked like Paolo Banchero walking off the court. Banchero, of course, missed all those weeks. And Suggs just is that guy. He's going to be constantly on the injury report. So what do you do with it? Well, I'm going to gamble a little bit, but I don't know that I'm going to be that far ahead of everybody. I just know that like right now he's a very variable player. He's somebody that you're going to either do really, really well with or not. And it just depends on what the price is to acquire him or sell. So we'll be looking at that as the year goes on. Anthony Black, if he could shoot free throws, it'd be a lot better, but at least he's taken at least 1 step forward. I don't think he's taken 2 steps forward. I was watching him the other night and I was watching a lot of it, stuff where he could be in the weight room and these guys are getting a little bit easier baskets on him than they will when he puts on an additional muscle and he gets a little bit better feel for the game. But for a guy who people really question the draft pick for Orlando, he has eventually answered the call. It's the free throw shooting that holds his value back, more of a 150 guy. When you factor in the free throw issues, if you take the free throw issues out, you're probably looking at 125, even 100 when he's at his peak. So Anthony Black doing fairly well. Shout out Goga Batatse for getting a steal and a block in like every game. It's been very impressive that you can do that in 10 or 15 minutes per game. I kid, but go check out that Goga rank. When you get a chance for the Sixers, Tyrese Maxey's taken a couple games off. That's actually probably good for him. I know it's been due to illness, but this dude's been playing 44 minutes a game or something. It's ridiculous, taking on all this contact, taking on so many shots. It's really a nightmarish situation for defenses. I mean, the guy can shoot off the dribble as well as anybody in the league not named Steph. And then on the flip side, he can take it to the cup faster than almost anybody else as well. And he's got all sorts of wiggle. It's really fun to watch that player who was it? Shake Milton was ahead of him for some odd years ago. And Tyrese Maxey, that one of the best players in the league. Great story. I'm not going to fade him, but we'll watch as the season goes on. If Philly starts struggling, then that's going to be a quick turn for him. I'm not going to worry about that this month, maybe not even next month, but watch them lose and we could change our tune real quick there. Quentin Grimes, another B150 winner, nothing but ramp in Philly. He's just going to keep improving as attrition hits that squad. So don't worry and enjoy and have fun. You got him for probably your last or second to last pick, depending on how many B150 guys you were stacking up there. Toward the ends of drafts, Quentin Grimes just going to get it done. I think it's great because he's got great athleticism, strong physicality, pretty good dribbling, shooting ability. So he's kind of got the whole package there. Can even play defensively a little bit. I don't want to get over my skis there with that, but he's just a really solid player and playing on a deal, or playing right now for his next deal. It's a great equation for him in Philly. We'll talk Andre Drummond. I've mentioned and talked about Andre Drummond at Mbona all the time, but if you are here for the first time, hello, welcome to Sports Ethos. Andre Drummond in the best shape that I've seen him in the last 5 years. Joel Embiid, As we detailed on one of the most recent shows, I think the Sixers have played basketball games in like 5 out of the last 21 days, or there's a 5-game stretch in 21 days. Obviously, Paul George and Joel Embiid are going to go nuts during that range because there's no risk to playing them big minutes. They can give their all on the floor. And I'm really looking at Joel Embiid with this. I'm not really talking so much about Paul George. Paul George is in much better shape, physically, injury-wise, than Joel Embiid. But if you're like, oh, Andre Drummond's not getting it done for me, and Joel Embiid's looking like it's good. Oh, should I be buying into Joel Embiid? Somebody sent me a sell high offer for Joel Embiid. Should I take it? Is he going to be the man? Is he back on an MVP pace? No. And honestly, you could drop Joel Embiid, and I probably wouldn't be mad at you. I think there are situations where you can manage the games off, where Joel Embiid absolutely has a place on fantasy rosters, but every day he steps on the court could be his last, and I'm not rooting for that. But that's the reality with somebody with his injuries, and that's why you take a chance on Andre Drummond, and that's why you take a chance on a Dembona. I've been dropping a Dembona in high stakes leagues. I probably have him in like 1 or 2. But I've got Andre Drummond everywhere. When Andre Drummond became a thing, I moved quickly and I put the fab bids in, and I made sure that I got Andre Drummond because it makes everything so much easier. I can now take a chance on a Dembona, or I can just toss him the waiver wire. Nobody's going to fight me for him right now. I can, when I get an injury on my roster, I can bring a Dembona back into the fold. And the bottom line is these two players are large gentlemen. They both have very big injury histories. Andre Drummond, he's in the best shape that we've seen over the last 5 years. And I really think they went to him and said, look, man, we need you this year. Get in shape, and we're going to give you a big role, and you can take corner threes, and we love you, man. Let's make this happen. And he's going to do the best he can. But I mean, if they run him out there 30 minutes a game, he is very likely to get injured. So you have a really easy to kind of read and handle situation in Philadelphia where you fade Joel Embiid, you buy into Andre Drummond no matter how bad it gets, and then you back it up with a Dembona. VJ Edgecombe, very exciting player. I'm super excited about him. I want him on my fantasy teams. I'm just realistic about what he's going to bring back. I think if he has a top 100 season the rest of the way, it's kind of a little bit of a win. They got a lot of players in Philly, and he's just been good. So, take your top 100, call it a season. Though, that said, when you had him and he's a top 30, 40 guy, you felt like you caught lightning in a bottle and that you hit a lottery ticket or something like that. It didn't happen, and I don't think it's going to happen unless there's more injuries to come. Kelly Oubre on his way back, and that's another thing with Oubre. He was a huge piece of their success starting off the year. So I think Kelly Oubre coming back makes the VJ Edgecombe situation a little bit more rough. And then just in general, this team, if they're fully healthy, a lot of these guys are going to struggle. So Edgecombe will get in where he fits in, and who knows, maybe he'll have a March and April to remember, but that's going to require Philly being out of the playoff chase. Let's get out of Philly and let's get to Phoenix, because all we want to talk about is Colin Gillespie, of course. And I'll start with Devin Booker then. Booker is just kind of, I wouldn't say he's grooving right now, but he's kind of grooving. Like, he doesn't care if somebody else has a big night. And I kind of like this. And I don't know if I like this in terms of where he was drafted or what his overall draft position, my own rank for the B150, but and yeah, he's taken on injuries already, but it's like, okay, they had him miss a couple games during the NBA Cup wind down. So his overall games played miss is kind of low in relation to the time off he got. Okay, I think that's good business. I think Phoenix has been handling injury situations actually really well, super intuitively. Jordan Ott is all about it. It's like the way he talks about it is the way we would talk about it. It's like, we want this guy to be available all season long. We don't want to burn him out right now. What's the smartest way to do that? What are we doing with Mark Williams? Well, Mark Williams has played in something like 21 to 26 games this season. This is an absolute massive win for Mark Williams, even if the per game number is not jumping off the page in the top 50 range where you thought maybe a Mark Williams could produce. But still, he's available. He's playing. This team's clicking. Grayson Allen, has had a history of injuries. He comes into the season in shape. When he does get injured, he gets back. It's like they're not rushing him back. He gets back, and it feels like they've kind of maybe settled this injury down a little bit. So I'm a big Jordan Ott guy right now. And, of course, Colin Gillespie. Let's talk Colin Gillespie. All right, anybody calling him a waiver wire pickup of the year doesn't have a subscription to the Sports Ethos NBA Fantasy Pass, and it shows. We saw this on film last season. We monitored the situation appropriately. We ranked him just outside of the middle rounds as your classic low-high guy, startable with low minutes, but with the big upside. I mean, I think he's as dangerous and underrated as Austin Reeves was. And it's easy to make the white guy comparison, whatever. I'm talking off the dribble, one of the best ball handlers you're going to see in the NBA. I'm talking about off the dribble shooting. This hasn't been a problem for him. Shooting in general, toughness, defense, knowing the game, knowing time and score. I mean, this guy, nobody in the NBA is surprised. Like Chris Finch the other day was asked, he's like, of course, yeah, he was going to do that. That was a thing. We all knew that. And the reports were coming in throughout last year as well. So this is why we work our asses off to get this right. And so I don't think you could call him a waiver wire pickup of the year. I mean, you can. He was available in waiver wires, but just not in leagues that we play in. Colin Gillespie, top 100 easy the rest of the year. He's not an injury replacement. That's just not right. And basically, he's going to be a part of the plan going forward because he's good enough to be a part of the plan going forward. And we got him with our 16th pick in every league, and it's great. Jalen Green, I think that was a pretty bad hamstring injury. I'm not worried about Jalen Green coming back and kind of ruining everybody. I think when he comes, if he comes back, which will probably be in about a month, if I had to guess, maybe a month and a half, 2 months, I mean, whatever. He really hurt it bad. They're going to take this nice and slow. I don't think they want to mess this up again. When he comes back, maybe he does have to shift a little bit into not a gunner off the bench, but maybe a lower minute player who will gun when he's on the floor, but everybody will just morph around that. If it hurts somebody, it might hurt Dylan Brooks. It might take a little bit of the per game production away from Royce O'Neal. Ryan Dunn might disappear at that point, but it's not going to be, and Jordan Goodwin would disappear, but it's not going to be like Grayson Allen just completely disappearing. It's not going to be Colin Gillespie just completely disappearing. These guys will hold their value, and you want to buy into it all season long. Let's get to the Portland Trailblazers. Denny Avdia becoming one of the more uncoverable players in the league. This guy, I think we're going to be talking about him within the context of high-level winning at some point. Like we're going to have think of the conversation that we have about like Paolo Banchero. I think we're going to be having a similar conversation about a guy like Denny Avdia. This is a player who can get left, can get right, and nobody can stop him because he's quick and he's fast and he's got a good handle and he's got a good feel for the game. And he's having a great season. And I think everybody just saw this coming and we're just going to ride this the rest of the way. Drew Holiday, health is the only issue for him. And I think he's going to be competitive enough to hang around and play this season. And I think with them in the play-in, I think he's going to be back at some point in time. At some point in time, he'll get injured, but when he's out there, I think he's going to be a reasonable facsimile of what he's been in the past, which he's been a top 40 guy. I think he could be a top 60 guy easily the rest of the way. Shaedon Sharpe, better in points leagues, situations where the efficiency shooting the ball don't matter as much. I think there's talent there. I have a little bit concerned about the injury risk, but overall, he is what he is. Donovan Clingan, I think there's some upside beyond his current production, as well as my own rank for him in the B150. We've seen him miss games. There's a little bit of a risk here, and we want to be cognizant of that. But other than that, I think he's had a good enough start to the season. It's kind of all systems go. And by the way, he hasn't been as noisy lately. You might actually be able to get him on a buy low. And then Tamani Kamara, I don't know if it's the knee injury or what, but he's improved enough. I don't know if he's going to hit those preseason expectations. I had the preseason expectations. I thought he was going to be like almost defensive player of the year candidate. That's the part I want to see him get back to. I want to hear more about his defense and less about other stuff, offense, or just maybe the non-production. I want to hear people and I want to see highlights and people showing me all sorts of Tamani Kamara goodness, because last year you just saw it and you're like, man, this guy could be the next great defender in the NBA. We just haven't had as much of that as we've had in past seasons. And then from a fantasy perspective, I just think we shift expectations, and he's more of a top 100 guy going forward. Then sometimes we'd see him in the top 50. He was getting drafted in the top 50, and I didn't really get him. People were ahead of me on that, and I was a little bit shocked because I thought I was a Tamani Kamara guy, but I'm not. Jeremy Grant started off well, and I think he actually has more cred as a fantasy asset this season. There's the deficiencies in his game, and I just don't think that we want to go all in on Jeremy Grant. I don't think he's a part of their future so much, but I think that he's not like trying to quit the last third of the season this year, if all that makes any sense. Scoot Henderson. I got no time for Scoot Henderson. Let's get to the Sacramento Kings. Let's go to Keegan Murray. I think there's a clear mandate for him and for him to have all the freedom that he can think of. But that's the problem, is he doesn't really 24/7 think, I got to get mine. I got to get mine. I got to get mine. Whereas you have Russell Westbrook, who doesn't even know that he's doing that, but he's doing it. And that's just how he plays the game. So Keegan, on one hand, he's been super aggressive. The steals and the blocks have been amazing. We have this upcoming question about Domantas Sabonis and what it looks like when he gets back. And I really think Sabonis at this point has probably felt his NBA mortality sort of hit him. Nobody in the league wants him. I mean, there might be 2 or 3 teams with both the personnel, which is a 3-point shooting blocking center who's super good at defense, that, there are unicorns out there, I suppose, 1 or 2 every now and then. So everybody in the league wants players that will pair with Domantas Sabonis, but nobody wants Domantas Sabonis. So when he comes back, what does he do? Does he try to I'm the man and I want to take the ball and I want to make this my team? And is he approaching it like that? Maybe. I think he's a proud dude, and I don't think he wants to admit, in totality, that his future in the NBA is now different. And he has a place in Sacramento that will kind of coddle him and let him, if he wants to do that. But I actually think Sabonis, as a pure passer, and a kind of a student of the game, I think he's going to understand that it's Keegan Murray time. So Keegan might get unlocked a little bit by the return of Domantas Sabonis. So Keegan, I think a lot of people are like, how high can he go? I mean, he shot out like a cannon when he got back. A couple of bad games in there, so people are a little unclear what's going to happen. And then you get the Sabonis thing that's sort of keeping people chilled. I would not be chill. I would be trying to get Keegan Murray, and I would be trying to do that with anything. I mean, top 75 for sure, top 60. Yep, give me top 60. I'll take Keegan Murray, and that'll be fun. Go check out the rank in the B150. As far as Sabonis goes, this is a really bad news situation. I think he took on so much damage in the last couple seasons, playing through everything, being the man. And I think it's just like his body at this point in time is starting to pay the price for all those little nicks and bruises. And now you have all these guards, and I think they can only get rid of DeMar DeRozan. And now you're going to have sort of like what can we get out of Zach LaVine? That's bad for business. I think the Keegan Murray shift is going to be a thing. I think the Maxime Reynaud playing time is going to necessarily move Domantas Sabonis out of his key areas on the floor. And he's got a little bit of an injury to work with. So it's like all bad for a guy that you could almost pencil or ink in with top 20 value each and every season. And where do you rank him? And I'm fading the crap out of him. And maybe I'm wrong, but it just doesn't look good for Domantas Sabonis. And him taking another injury timeout, so to speak, and just kind of maintaining, if they can't trade him maintaining what athleticism he has left, I think is super important to his value proposition in future seasons. If he wants to get out of Sacramento, and Lord knows, I know the Napa Valley wine is super good, man, but dude, get out of Sacramento, make it happen, do the thing, get out, because you're gonna have a slow career death in Sacramento if you stay there. And but great basketball player, by all sources, a great dude. And I really think that it's unfortunate that they made the bet on him. It's kind of like Derek Queen in New Orleans. It wasn't Derek Queen's choice to do all of this. This was Vivek Ranadive wanting to be in the playoffs and being willing to get rid of a guy who, by the way, just led the Indiana Pacers to a Game 7 that they theoretically could have won against a team that had one loss until the San Antonio Spurs beat them, and you traded your other guy to them, and they've been ripping you off for years. Oh, I love the Sacramento Kings. Zach LaVine. What do we do with Zach LaVine? So he's got an ankle injury right now. It doesn't seem like it's too bad. They're going to take their time with him. I really think he needs a reset. I really think they need to just decide what they're doing with Russell Westbrook in Sacramento. I mean, he's the odds-on favorite to kind of just keep doing what he's doing and be the man in Sacramento. And who made that choice? I mean, that's dumb. That is dumb. I love Russell Westbrook, but man, the basketball is terrible. From a holistic standpoint, like what happens with Malik Monk, what happens with Keon Ellis, what happens with Keegan Murray, what happens with Maxime Reynaud, all the different things. You already got one massive blemish in Zach LaVine, who can't really shake anybody, and he needs to take a lot of shots to get going. And then you have Russell Westbrook just doing his thing. So anyway, these two right here are going to kind of struggle for consistency. And Zach LaVine, when he comes back, I mean, the best thing that I can see is they run a Domantas Sabonis, Malik Monk and Keegan Murray heavy offense and balance it out with defenders like Keon Ellis. And then put Zach LaVine and Russell Westbrook into I'd put Russell Westbrook into a 20-minute role and say, Russ, go out there and have fun. And then Zach LaVine, hey, you get 29 minutes. And when you go out there, have fun. But you're not trading him. You're not reestablishing his trade value. Nobody wants to pay for Zach LaVine. His body might be cooked. And then he doesn't play defense. So it's just all bad. And Zach LaVine, I would be having him, if he's all things going well, kind of a fantasy asset, he's going to be a top 50 to 75 guy. I think with all of this in play, you got to go way lower than that. And then as for Maxime Reynaud, I think it's just a little bit too much detriment to the threes, the steals, and the blocks deficiencies. Pardon me. Those three categories are really hurting him. I think there's a risk that he can't be a late round guy. I think that Domantas Sabonis again could help him get the ball, get some easier buckets, get like 6 to 8 points off basically layups in a game. I'm a little concerned that the two of them together will keep him away from the blocks that he so desperately needs to have the fantasy value. But Maxime Reynaud, you got to at least look at him for a potential late round finish. And who knows, maybe you get a little bit lucky and maybe something clicks, and that would be the Sabonis angle. And Reynaud can be something of a top 100 guy. Not a lot of upside. You don't got to go over your, got to drop somebody good to get Maxime Reynaud. But for those of you in 2 center leagues, you might give him a look. As far as Monk goes, you got this like Monk Ellis duo that I think are kind of related in the sense that the minute they trade DeMar DeRozan, I think Malik Monk goes from anywhere from a top 50 to a top 100 value. And you just got to plan for that. I mean, the trade deadline is 45 or so days away. And maybe DeRozan waits that entire time, and that makes sense. But at that 45th day, Malik Monk will get you there. And I think you've got ways that this can happen also before then. Right now, we get a week with no Zach LaVine. Somebody else will be, maybe exiting stage left at some point in time. Hell, Keon Ellis didn't even play the other day, yet the entire team or the entire league is called on him for a trade. Dennis Schroeder back into the mix. This is another guy that I think can help with box score health, something that we as fantasy folks don't talk enough about, box score health. Dennis Schroeder, I think, can help with that. Malik Monk can help with that. Keon Ellis can help with that. So I look at these guys as the solutions in Sacramento. And Keon Ellis, of course, has in the past had top 50 production. Right now, I'm not rating him anywhere close to that. I don't trust Sacramento as far as I can throw them. And that's just the way that it is. And of course, again, Zach LaVine reevaluated in 1 week per Sean Cunningham. The great Sean Cunningham. Let's get out of Sacramento. It's a good place to live, but not a good place to watch basketball. Victor Wembanyama, I mean, he's the number 2 guy until he can be the number 1 guy. They can beat the Thunder in the playoffs. No questions asked. De'Aaron Fox, I think he'll be tested on the principle of having too many good players on the floor, but they paid him and he's good enough to convert. So I think the low floor here helps me with my confidence rating. And we got a ton of De'Aaron Fox, not only in the preseason B150, but here going forward, we'll have a ton of De'Aaron Fox. I think with Stephon Castle that he's going to level out. The more you have good players play, I think you'll see less turnovers, less free throws. He made a couple big ones, by the way, the other day in that Oklahoma City game. So hopefully that will give him some confidence to make some more. And I just think that in general, this player is going to deal with the free throw thing. He's going to deal with shooting. He's going to have great athleticism. He's going to have great feel for the game. And playing in San Antonio, Castle's just going to be an asset that continues to get better no matter how many good players they stack. Devin Vassell is now a burrito brother. That's a term we use on the show for all the 4 or 5 guys in San Antonio that you can stream on a given night. We're betting burritos is what it's basically coming down to. Devin Vassell has been a cut above that group. Now with Fox and Castle and Harper back, Vassell is back with that group. He had a big game the other night. If you can get anything out of that in a sell high, sell now kind of a deal, I think he's going to kind of hover around the top 130 to 140 range on the strength of his stat set, but it's going to be a little bit iffy from a night-to-night basis. Dylan Harper, I think, will be a late-round value. I think Castle will be a late-round value. And then you've got your burrito brothers from there that will just be stream-worthy. And also shout out to Julian Champagny. I think this guy on another team would be getting a lot of pub. Right now, he's as good as kind of anybody else on that squad. And pardon me 1 second. I think somebody's going to hit the door. We get packages delivered like all the time right now. Nope, nobody's going to be knocking. Okay, I don't have to do anything. Let's get to the Toronto Raptors, where we've got Scotty Barnes. People are asking, is Scotty Barnes going to keep this up all year? I think the answer is yes. I think the Brandon Ingram addition, however crazy it seemed at the time and however it went down with Masai Ujiri no longer there anymore, and what ownership impact had on the decision to get Brandon Ingram and all these guys that needed the ball in their hands, well, you kind of just figured it out on your own. Like Emmanuel quickly fit in well enough. RJ Barrett has been good. So I think the fact that they've all been good has taken out some of the sting from having too many ball handlers. Of course, RJ Barrett injured right now and possibly going to be traded, though I wonder what this knee injury has done for his trade value. Not a great thing to have happen before you're going to go market somebody. But they've got 4 guys, and if you want to count Jamal Shed as the 5th Toronto Raptor, I'm open to that, but I'm not going to say he's a must roster player in a 12 or a 14 team league. But he's caught our eye and he's played well. And with only 4 guys getting a lot of usage and a lot of fantasy value, you're always looking to see who's that next guy who can get up in there. And as far as quickly goes, I think he's just got a little bit of injury risk. I think he's going to cruise to mid-round value. Ingram, happy, playing well, going to be a mid-round value. I mean, we all know the Brandon Ingram stuff. And as long as he's happy, maybe that injury risk is not what we think it is. I thought a lot of stories out of New Orleans the last couple of years essentially amounted to not happy, don't want to play. Let's get to the Utah Jazz. We got Lauri Markkanen, and why I had him ranked highly in the B150 to start the season is I kind of thought this was his let the hair down and get loose season, and that part's off and running. And the big question is whether Utah and Lauri Markkanen cooperate, and if it's a trade, does he go to a good place? And if they don't trade him, like, do they allow him to play the rest of the season? Like, I think he has a say in this at some level. I think Markkanen doesn't want to be a guy that plays 55 games per year. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I think people generally, especially when it comes to money and leverage and shots and contracts and all these different things, you're downgraded if you don't play 60 plus games per year. You know, he's been doing this for so long. I just kind of thought, can he do it again? I don't really think he can do it again. You know, I think he's got to take control of his own narrative. He's got to take control of his own value. He's got to take control of his own political situation in terms of where he plays and all of that. And we're off and running. Now, am I going to fade him a little bit in the next couple thirds of the season, the next 2/3 of the season? Yes, I'm going to fade him. Absolutely, I'm going to fade him a little bit, not a lot. But this is great, and Utah's winning more games. And Keontae George being good, I think, actually helps this equation. And I just say all things are kind of good, because if you get rid of Yusuf Nurkic and you don't play Kevin Love and you play Kyle Filipowski and you play Ace Bailey, this quartet, and you've got some other good young players. You got Taylor Hendricks, you got Walter Clayton, you got Isaiah Collier. You know, you have something of a framework that you can build upon. And of course, Utah wants to tank. And of course, they're going to be all over the trade market and who knows what's what. And they're marketing the crap out of marketing. But I don't know if there's teams that want to buy into it. We're really looking at Detroit, I think. And I just don't think that they think that that's going to be a good fit. So what's the team that's going to take Lauri Markkanen out of his second or third round value going forward? I mean, the game he had last night was freaking ridiculous. I mean, he's a league winner. And I was drafting Lauri Markkanen at like 75, 80. Ridiculous. And I think I had him ranked at 35 in the B150. And that's more or less, he's been a top 22 or ranked number 22 player in 8 cat leagues and just killing it. And then his teammate, Keontae George, he's kind of almost unstoppable right now. And I don't know, like, I think the ceiling for him when he's going to get the finer parts of his game to kind of connect. And I think at that point in time, we will actually have all-star level discussions about Keontae George. Now they're going to need to win, and he's going to need to be good enough to be an all-star for 1 or 2 years before the media catches up. That's usually how it goes. So with the way he's playing, I think it's going to be a harder sell both internally and even like to key stakeholders at the league office. Like, oh, we're going to sit Keontae George for 2 to 3 weeks, you know, because of some undisclosed injury. And, you know, we're going to just tank our way to the bottom. I think you can't do that as well as you could have done it if he wasn't blowing up. If he was a top 75 producer this season, I think you can start to build an argument. We can rest this guy. The fact that he's out there having the season that he is like insurance for his production. So Keontae George, let's go. I think he's going to have a great finish to this season, and maybe some immaturity issues that I've just picked up on just watching games, but he's young and he's going to work through that. And he's got some veterans there that can help lead the way. Keontae George, hell of a season. Kyle Filipowski, we got like this. We've had so many ups and downs with Kyle. this year. There was why isn't he playing in the preseason? Oh, maybe he's hurt. Who knows? Oh, slow start. Oh, he doesn't see the floor. Oh, cool. They're going to run everything through Nurk. Oh, sweet. He's not going to play anymore. Oh, now there's Kyle again, giving you about 5 games of production. Oh, let's get a dip. Oh, now we're back. Last night, we got the full Kyle Filipowski experience from last season. He had a season high, I think 27 or 29 points. Big line. It was his fingerprints all over the game. I think it's just as simple as the minute they stop messing around with Jusuf Nurkic, whether it's at the trade deadline, whether it's injury, whether they just get bored watching teams pick Nurk apart defensively, they will eventually make this shift. And then we start to see top 75 production. And I think in a worst case scenario with Kyle Filipowski, once that corner is turned, the worst you're going to see is top 100. And he's got top 50 upside and a really unique fantasy game that has both efficiency and inefficiencies sort of built into it and some potential for defensive stats, but not a lot. And I don't know if he puts it all together, if he has another gear or not, but we saw that gear last season. So I guess you theoretically have to give it credit for being possible. Kyle Filipowski, I think he's a must roster player. Your mileage may vary, but I think when we see Jusuf Nurkic getting rested, that's the set wave. That's the thing that's the indicator that the next stage is about to hit. Ace Bailey, I think it's going to be messy, but I think at minimum a late round guy going forward. And then I just hope Walter Clayton wins in the Isaiah Collier versus Walter Clayton Bowl. Like basically Clayton's got a stat set that I think can work in fantasy leagues. And I think with Collier, while I'm nothing against him and I hope he has a great career and I hope he continues to ascend through the ranks, we've seen him at 30 minutes a game and it doesn't really compute to fantasy value. So a little bit of a wash there for him when he's good. And then Taylor Hendricks, I don't know if he can be good, but he's been a forgotten guy in Utah. Let's get to the Washington Wizards. We actually have some spicy Washington Wizards stuff to close the show out here. Keyshawn George crushing it. Another B150 win, picking him up in the 80s, 90s, and just loving it. Been a top 60 guy per game, pretty much available. Missed a couple games, but I'm going to guess not going to be benched down the stretch for the Washington Wizards. I think he's good, but not so good. Not Alexander Sarr good. Not, and who knows? We could argue that out. Who's better, George or Sarr? Probably Sarr. I don't know. But you picked up Sarr with what was it, the 3 pick or 2 pick? I think it was a 2 pick. You picked up Sarr with a high draft pick. Keyshawn George is a pick. He's a good pick, but he's not that kind of a pick. And so you've got more risk with Sarr as a big man that's already had some issues. I don't think the risk is there for Keyshawn George as much, though the risk will be there in general. Though the odds flattening, I think, really has had an impact. And they're off to a good start. Maybe if they keep losing games, they won't have to worry about tanking as they get down the stretch. But at any rate, Keyshawn George crushing it. Sarr, I do think we got to have a little bit of risk here. I think I rated him appropriately to balance all of the risk and the top 40 production that he has had in this season to date. A good start for him. And we just want to see more and more and more. I think with Sarr, I have questions. Can he be super high end? Or is he just going to be kind of a tweener in the sense that he's athletic, can shoot, but not really take over a game? I want to see him be able to take over games. Let's get to one of my favorite B150 players. If you made it to the end of this show, you get the goods. Justin Champagnie. Give him a couple good games, and this dude can change his rank real quick. I had him ranked something stupid in the B150. I forget what it was, like 80 or 90. But the guy's not getting minutes, right? He's out of the rotation. They don't want to play Champagnie. I mean, we saw this last year. This happened, and then he got cut loose, and we picked him up or had him already, and then he had a great finish. And that's just Champagnie in a nutshell. And the interesting thing about Champagnie is he shows you that he can be more, just like his brother Julian. He showed, I mean, as early as summer league that these guys could be more, but like they show you they can be more. And then they get tossed into the run up and down the court and stand in the corner part. And they're just the lowest possible deployment that you could find. And they're still getting it done. And then you just get these signs that they're going to actually cut the guy loose. Now, I don't know if this is the big moment where he's going to get 25 minutes per game the rest of the way. I mean, Sarr comes back, and I think that complicates matters for him because right now they're using him at power forward, and really he's enjoying easy rebounds all over the place. And it's a small sample size. But you're seeing less Chris Middleton. They've been starting Justin Champagnie for a while. He can be good in 20 minutes per game. Like, that's literally all he needs to be at least serviceable for your fantasy squad. He gets to 25, he gets to 30. If he gets to 30, he's got late early round value. That's how quickly the stat set climbs. And the dude's shooting free throws well. He's always been a dip in the free throw percentage guy. And that's cut his value back, and he's been good enough to get around that. If he's actually good at shooting free throws and he's actually a better shooter overall, when we're talking about a guy that rebounds, we're talking about a guy that gets defensive stats all over the place. He's quick, he's long, he's a multi-purpose player on the floor, and he's the type of player you develop if you want a winning basketball team. I know Washington's allergic to that, but I think that they actually are fine with Justin Champagnie. They just wanted to let everybody else get their minutes. Well, it's CJ McCollum and Chris Middleton get their minutes. And yeah, you got Corey Kispert out. You got, Trey Johnson just got back, and everybody got to get their minutes except for Justin Champagnie because, the money plays and whatnot. But I do think at this point in time, they've understood that he is what he is. And I think we understand that here. We're going to rank him way more aggressively than anybody else will. And I think this rank is actually low. So when you get to the B150 and you see his rank, just know I think it's low. But I was trying to be realistic about it. Other than that, we got Tristan Vucevic. He's the next guy when Washington turns the page. I think whether it's Alexander Sarr getting limited or held back or hurt, but I think even independent of that, I think with Vucevic, they know that he was a late second half of the season guy. Like heading into this season, they weren't going to give him big minutes up on the front. On the back end of the season, I think they're way more open to it. And this is a guy that's got a lot of good skills. Like he is a better passer than anybody gives him credit for. He's a scorer. He's a shooter, not so much of a shot blocker, but he's got enough elements of all the things you want. I mean, we talked about Sabonis needing a three-point shooting center that blocks shots. Tristan Vucevic. If Sacramento had any idea what they were doing, they would have been like, hey, Washington, can we take your two-way guy? And what was it going to take to get him? I'll pay you anything. Okay. Oh, a bag of donuts. Okay, cool. I'll take Tristan Vucevic. Problem not solved, but you're working toward it. But Vucevic is also a guy that's been able to climb up the ranks relatively fast. Not as fast as a guy like Champagnie, but he was good in stretches last season. And I do think that he's capable of being an NBA player on an NBA basketball floor. The Bilal Coulibaly's, he's got an injury derailed season that might be snake bitten. So I'm not going to push Bilal Coulibaly anymore. McCollum's in a great situation right now. I do think he has, quote, it still. It's just the consistency. And can he have fantasy value without being kind of peak CJ McCollum? So if he has a big game and you have McCollum, sell him right away, because if he gets traded, he's not going to get the freedom he gets in Washington. Trey Johnson, we need a few more signs of life. I do think there's a good fantasy basketball player in there somewhere. And then you got Bub Carrington. He's red hot lately, and I do think that he's improving, and I think there's some signs that he could take on more and more of the load in Washington. It's just inconsistency that we've seen not just this season, but historically, and then the stat set's not quite there. So I'm not jumping in head first with Bub Carrington. You guys can do that, but I'll give him a shout out for playing well the last couple of weeks. And that's going to do it, guys. Thank you all for watching this special episode. Go to sportsethos.com and check out the Bruski 150. Thank you to our team here at Sports Ethos, Andre, the content guys, Doc, everybody who puts this operation together. Me being able to do this the way that I'm able to do this is the result of a team that works as a team, that everybody puts their work in and everybody doesn't complain, and everybody's a team guy, not an I guy. And everybody's just getting it done, and we're able to do stuff like this for you guys. So thank you guys for your time. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the button, all those different things. This was Fantasy NBA Today, presented by FanDuel.